Keith Bishop talks about his decision to leave the Denver Broncos as the highest paid offensive lineman for the last 2 years and join the DEA. Were you at that point to where it was that bad, or were you afraid it
Oh, no,
was
no,
going to
no.
get
I,
that
I
bad?
was emotionally hurt. Not,
Okay.
I mean, I'd had a lot of surgeries. I think I'd had 14 surgeries by then. But some of them, some of those are scopes and, just change the oil in the knees and stuff like that. But, I had some major surgeries too. Like I'd ruptured a peroneus tendon in a foot, and I'd have both knees reconstructed, and I'd have my hand rebuilt, and or thumb, the crux of separating us from others is the thumb and all that kind of stuff. But no, I had another 3-4 years in me of
What was
playing,
the deciding
barring any,
factor? Right.
just giving my perception of giving so much and then getting tooled. And my last year, and
What do you mean by that? You're getting tooled. I mean, too old or tooled?
tooled, screwed.
Welcome to Game of Crimes. Welcome back, you players, playerettes, dudes, dudettes, and everything in between. I am Morgan Wright. I am the ultimate host, and then I have my semi-ultimate host because he's been hurting for the last few days. You're lucky you're still sitting up straight right now, pal. My fellow partner in crime, Steve Murphy.
Hey, everybody. It's not COVID. I tested negative for COVID, but our 5-year-old granddaughter comes over every weekend, spends the night with us, and hangs out. And apparently she picked up a virus at school, and she shared that with Grammy and Pops. And I think Mom and Dad just finished up with it, or they're finishing up with it today. So we
The
share
gift
everything in
that
our
keeps
family.
on giving, yes. And
No
you were
secrets.
headed to Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil. You were headed to Savannah, Georgia, then San Luis Obispo, and you had to cut out a couple trips because you were so sick, bro.
You're not kidding. I ended up in the emergency room for several hours, primarily from dehydration and all that crap. So it's all cleaned up, but I had to leave my partner Javier Pena to take care of him. So God bless him. He's actually, as we're recording this right now, he's doing a presentation later today in San Luis Obispo. It's the first time in 7 years we've missed a speaking event. I can't believe it.
Well, you're cleaned up and cleaned out apparently too, so
Yeah,
you're
lost a
back to
little weight.
square one.
That's a hell of a way to lose weight, but I did.
Oh my God, how far we have fallen with this level of this conversation. Anyway, guys, hey, well, thank you guys back. Hey, before we get started, just a quick bit of housekeeping. Remember, Apple and Spotify have this new feature. It's called 5 stars. Well, Apple's always had it. Spotify's got it now. Just go hit the 5 stars. Let us know what you think about it. Your ratings really help. I mean, it helps us obviously get exposed to more people, but we're insecure. We get older, we get insecure. We need people
That's
saying
right.
nice things about us. So
That's right.
go see if you say something mean, it doesn't matter because it doesn't hurt our feelings anyway. But anyway, head on over there. Also head on over to our website, gameofcrimespodcast.com. We've got a lot of good pictures. In fact, we'll talk about episode 50, our penultimate episode. We put pictures of Pablo Hippos on there taken by the real DEA narcos, the guys that were down there. So you'll have to go check that out. We got our merch, live events, mailing list. But follow us on social media at Game of Crimes on Twitter, at Game of Crimes podcast on Facebook and the Instagram. But where you got to be, 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 Murph.
You have got to be on Patreon because there is so much good stuff on there. It's unbelievable.
Patreon.com/Game of Crimes. I mean, we have got about as much content on Patreon now as we have put out on podcast. And so we've got some really good stuff coming up. Had it not been for Chris Feistel on Saturday telling Dave Mitchell, hey, I'm good, we can record Sunday, and then Sunday telling us, oh, I forgot, my daughter's got a golf tournament, we would have had the Real DEA Narcos on the Real DEA Narcos Cali edition in the can and getting ready to put out. But we just got to finish recording the last 2 episodes. This will be 16 parts. It is worth every penny of it.
You're not kidding. You've got to listen to this because if you thought Javier and I telling our story, I think we did 12 hours on that one. This is just eye-opening. It's unbelievable what's going on. Hey, and you know what? I just found out that I'm not going to tell you how I found out, but I just found out there's going to be a 4th season of Narcos Mexico on Netflix.
I know how you found out.
How?
Somebody you worked on Narcos with.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you're
Come
right.
on, a trained investigator, please.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that that's public. I haven't Googled it yet to see if that's public knowledge, but I thought they were completely done. I thought 6 seasons was it, and here they are having seventh season. So if you didn't know that, now you do. This is where you get all the scoop.
This is where you get the good stuff. And that's why you got to be on patreon.com/game of crimes. Hey, also, just head on over to paypal.com, use our email, gameofcrimespodcast@gmail.com, which you can also email us at your ideas, complaints, comments, gripes, bitches, moans, whatever it is that it might be. PayPal.me/game of crimes, whatever it takes to make it easier for you to support the show. But a quick disclaimer, we talk about crime and we talk about bad people doing bad things and bad people doing bad things to good people. We do take the story seriously, but
As you can already tell, we don't take ourselves serious at all.
no, we don't. And one way we don't take ourselves seriously is we have to talk about something very important, Steve. Do you know what time it is?
I think it might be time for
Small Town Police
Blotter.
Yay! And this week we've got a couple stories from our Game of Crimes fan group. The group is run by our favorite Mafia Queen in residence, Sandy Salvato, and we've got a couple that came in. So yay! So hey, Mariah Lawson sends us this next story. And Steve, now I got to ask you, have you, during your times with DEA, even as, as a real cop when you were back in Krusty Krab, West Virginia, did you ever have to search anything that was abandoned, like a house, a car, a business?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Have you ever found an abandoned car?
Probably.
Not a trick question.
I know,
Yeah,
probably.
I mean,
I'm trying to remember specifically.
No, you found cars that were abandoned. People dump them. They leave them. Drug runners. Like that, right?
Yeah.
I bet you. I bet you. Here's something you've never found on the road: an abandoned house.
An
abandoned house on the road. Police in Iberia Parish, Louisiana, recently arrested 2 men in connection with an illegal heavy haul that resulted in a shitload of property damage and power outage at 3:30 a.m. on May 22nd. This is just recent. I mean, we are just talking about days ago. The Iberia Parish Sheriff's Office responded to Burrard Road in Laurelville, population 778. Salute. For a report of an illegal transport of a house. When they arrived on scene, they found an abandoned truck, trailer, and a house blocking the entire 400 block of Burrard Road. This has been an ongoing situation, and the owner of the house, Troy Domingue, was instructed and warned by the sheriff's officials that proper permits needed to be had. He did not have those, and they tried to move down Cotu Holmes Road. They mowed down mailboxes, road signs, trees were damaged in the process, as well as power lines and poles, causing 695 power customers to be without power for several hours. They located and arrested, and if you saw the mug photos, they do not look like the sharpest tools in the shed. Domingue and Nico Como, and that's like, how do you spell snow in Louisiana? S-N-E-U-X. This is Como, C-O-M-E-A-U-X, 32 on charges of violation of parish ordinance, obstruction of highway commerce, and criminal damage to property. Both men were booked into jail on bonds, Steve, of $125,000 each.
You know what? That's not high enough for what they did, because if 695 people lost their power, there's only 770 people in the community. Oh, there's a bunch of pissed off people there.
Yes,
But
sure.
if I was them, I might look at an alibi of a hurricane. Hurricane came by, picked everything up, and put it there.
Magically put it on wheels, rolling down the road, tied to a truck that happened to be these guys'. So, yeah,
oh my gosh,
that is one magic hurricane, my friend. All right,
I guess they thought nobody's going to notice a big ass house driving down the street, huh?
What is it, Martha? Don't know. Can't see it for the house that's in front of me. There go the Millers. Yeah.
Might be Dorothy in there.
There goes Elma Thibodeau. He's going down the road there in that house. So
he's looking for Boudreaux, that's all.
Boudreaux and Thibodeau. Anyway, next one comes to us via of Luis Chavez, again from our Game of Crimes fan group. This is a popular place to get stories.
It is.
Steve, in keeping in line with weird shit that you find out on the road, this is Jacksonville, Florida, but it's a Florida man story, and I'm telling you. So, 2 men were caught with something strapped to the roof of their car, and it was a power pole, an aluminum power pole.
What?
They were trying to steal a light pole, and this is a few years ago, but after Hurricane Irma, the Jacksonville men were arrested after someone reported them seeing them load a light pole on top of an SUV on the Wonderwood connector on Wednesday, 2 days after Hurricane Irma caused major damage. According to police, An officer overheard on the radio that men without shirts, that sounds like a band, men without shirts, were loading a light pole on top of a gray Kia Sorento. They noticed the light pole was missing from an area on top of the bridge. This one's pretty easy to spot. There's only one car with a light pole on top of it. They stopped them, took them into custody. So Victor Walter Appeler and Blake Lee Waller, 42, were arrested. The pole was valued at $2,500. They were charged with a lot of things. In fact, they found out the officers did a pawn database search and learned that Appeler had 72 scrap metal related transactions since January. And this was in September. So this guy is stealing and selling shit left and right.
Oh my gosh. Again, rocket science is out there. Nobody's going to notice that. Well, how tall is a light pole? 20 feet?
Probably a little bit longer than that. Yeah, it was about twice as long as the car. In fact, a photo of the man handcuffed on the sidewalk went viral. JSO's Twitter feed was quickly filled with memes and photos ridiculing the pair. There you go.
There's a whole separate class of stupid right there. I mean, think about the dent it put in the top of their car.
That's why they're not rocket scientists. Speaking of somebody who's not a rocket scientist, Steve, what do we tell you kids? Don't do meth. 7 p.m. September 25th in the 200 block of Anchor Avenue, officers conducted a traffic stop and arrested the driver for possession of cocaine. The driver admitted he had just recently used cocaine to celebrate the completion of a drug rehab program.
Somehow I think he forgot the purpose of going there. Huh?
You just can't make this shit up, I'm telling you.
Holy cow, that's like going to prison for murder and getting out early and
killing somebody to celebrate. Yeah, I got it. Oh my God, folks. Okay, well.
Hey, wait, I got to say something though about that light pole story in Jacksonville. Let me tell you, I've been thinking about Florida. There are some crazy things go down here, but you can live in a boring state, or you can live in a state where stories are told every day about what goes on here. I like it here.
Yep. Well, that's why we call it Florida, man. So, hey, as we thus end the reading for today, Domine es Requiem, Kyrie Domine Dona es Requiem. I keep forgetting my Latin there. Anyway, that being said, back to our Latin Mass. But so we had our 50th celebration. Got a lot of good comments from everybody. Thank you so much for all your support. Yeah, we can't believe, and a lot of those were two-parters. I'd say about 90% of those were two-parters. So we're going to be talking to you guys going forward about, hey, do you like the two-parters? Is it too long? Is it long enough? Do you want so we've been experimenting. If you noticed, a couple of our episodes like this one will be a one-parter, but a little bit longer. And we want you guys to just give us some feedback on the fan group page, on our main, on the fan group, on the main page, on our email, gameofcrimespodcast@gmail.com. Hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Just let us know what you think. And because we want to accommodate you, it's not about us. It's about you.
And you know what? When you give us the 5 stars on
Apple and Spotify. Yes, Steve. The platforms we put our podcasts on.
Put a comment on there and tell us whether you like the 2-episode versions or the 1-episode version. We want everybody to know what you think. We're trying to make you guys happy. We have access to great content, and we just want to share it with everybody. So you tell us what you like.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we want the happy massage. So anyway, that being said, let's get. Hey, and by the way, too. So. Yeah, well, hey, look, we got a good one coming up because I can guarantee you we've never had this combination before. A pro football player that played on Super Bowl teams, didn't win any, not till later, but still, you're at the elite of the elite level. Dude was just he could have stayed in the NFL for a long time, but he reached a point and decided, what the hell? Let me join DEA and go visit countries like Afghanistan and work drug cases. So. Steve, this is your guy, Keith Bishop, man, former offensive lineman for the Denver Broncos, playing with John Elwood. He said Elwood. I thought it was Elway, but he said Elwood.
That was funny. I tell you what, I am so excited about having him on the show. And you got to understand, Keith, he's huge. He's a massive man. He's got hands like bear paws. He is one of the most gentle giants you'll ever meet till he gets maybe a little bit to drink, or I wouldn't want to piss him off to find out. But it's just so exciting to have him get on here and tell his story. 10 years in the NFL, Pro Bowler, selected for the Pro Bowl twice, and he chose to go help his fellow man. He's been you're going to hear his story. He's been a kind of a cop buff for a long time. But you know who benefited from all this is the citizens of the United States as well as the countries he worked in. One hell of an investigator, one of the most dedicated people I've met, I used to get emails from him or text messages at 3:30 in the morning where he's spending all night in the office while we were working Special Operations Division on ongoing operations. Love this guy to death. He does not do interviews. I mean, you can Google the guy. You can't hardly find anything about him. But when we contacted him, he said, "Hey, I don't do interviews, but for you guys, you got it." So I'm just excited that you can. I hope you can tell my voice here that I'm excited to have Keith on here. What a freaking hero in my eyes.
And you can tell he doesn't do podcast interviews because the guy did not have a concept of why we have headsets on for podcast interviews. You will find that out during the podcast. So, hey, but there's only one way they can hear about this, Steve, and I have to ask you, are you ready to play the biggest, baddest, most dangerous, and football-friendly game of all, the Game of Crimes?
Here we go, everybody. Get in, sit down, shut up, and hold on. Mr. Bishop, Mr. Keith Bishop is going to bring on the exciting tales.
So before we get started with this, Murph and I were thinking about picking on our next guest. But before we do, Keith, in your day, how big were you? It's not a trick question.
Well, I mean, what are you talking about?
How tall are you?
When you were playing games?
6'3".
And how much did you weigh?
282, 287.
All right. And played which position for the Denver Broncos?
Offensive guard.
That's why we're not going to pick on him. He's used to beating up people in pads and helmets for a living.
Going backwards, too.
I will tell you, this man has the biggest freaking hands I've ever shook in my entire life. It's like a bear paw.
Well, by the way, let us get started, though, by welcoming everybody.
Yeah.
And welcome. This is going to be a very interesting story because we've never had this combination of talent before. Somebody who played college football, played professional football, and then decided, what the hell? Let's go be a DEA agent. So Keith Bishop, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You say that now, pal. Just wait.
Give us 2 hours. We'll see how you feel then.
Hey, real quickly, what was your number?
54.
54. Which is
54,
Murph's IQ, by the way,
54.
magically. It's amazing how that works out.
Yeah.
Yes.
54 in your program, number 54 in your program.
And 54 in your heart.
Oh, jeez.
And did you play with Elway?
Yes.
All right. We're going to have to get into that in a minute.
Well, wait a minute. Let's just ask a quick question. Who was your best man at your first wedding?
One of my high school buddies.
And who else was in the party there? I thought Elway was in there.
No, I didn't know him then.
Oh.
Shit, that's
well,
going,
the hell, never mind.
Hey, I'm old.
Shit.
That's going way back. And John and I've been buds for next year will be 40 years.
Since you were protecting his butt when he was playing quarterback and you were on the line.
I was trying.
Yeah. Well, before we get though into a digression over towards pro football, let's talk about how you got started in this whole thing, because you attended a university that wasn't really known for football during the time that when you were there. It was Baylor.
Isn't, is it? Still isn't known for that.
They did. They kind of peaked, and then now they're part of the Big 12. Look, I'm from Kansas originally, so I suffered too with the Kansas Wildcats before they became the Wildcats all over again. But how did you get? So you went to Baylor, right? So let's talk about that.
Well, if you want to really be interesting, not that I'm going to educate y'all on being interesting, because your success speaks for itself. But I started off playing high school at the Bad Guys on Friday Night Lights at Midland Lee High School.
Damn.
Oh, wow. So the real Friday Night Lights. So it was Midland, and what was the other one? Permian?
Permian. The show is about Permian High School, which was our arch rival. I was Midland Lee. And in the film, the bad guys are Midland Lee.
How accurate of a movie was that? How good did Billy Bob Thornton do? It's the the coach.
I don't know. I was blessed. Honest to goodness, I was blessed. Jim Acree, who's passed, was my high school coach at Midland Lee, and he's a legend in Texas high school football. And I was fortunate enough to have him. And I'm thinking back then, because I think the show takes place a few years after I'd gone. But
But they take their
Will,
football seriously down there, don't they?
oh yeah, I mean, it was like businesses would change hands, on bets, or at least there were rumblings of businesses
Wow.
changing hands on bets and stuff
And
from the high school football games.
there are high school football stadiums down there that would rival some of the college stadiums in
Yeah,
terms of they
yeah,
may not seat as many, but man, they are ornate. They are decked
yeah,
out, aren't they?
yeah, yeah, and it's changed so much since, because, and I, honest to goodness, I cannot remember how many old Midland Memorial Stadium held that where I played. Made 10,000.
But 10,000 at a
For a
high
high
school.
school
Yes, I'm saying,
I
are you
think
kidding me?
I accurate, but I think now it's the stadium there in Midland is, I don't 30,000, something like that. It'd
Wow.
be, and you're talking a town back when I was in Midland, 65,000 was the population, and Odessa, which is always bigger, was I think 80,000 or something like 90,000 or something like that. Now I think Midland's up over 100, and I don't know what Odessa is. So you got that Permian Basin, that area where it's
Holy cow.
that's all there was. I mean,
So you
that
play the same
go
position in
rabbit
high
hunt.
school?
Now, hang on a second. We got a little interruption. Go ahead.
Oh, we are in the middle of a high security incident.
Chip said they should be here roughly around 2:30. I'll bring him in, park him, and then Josh should take him upstairs.
Okay, doke. I'm kind of out of communicado for the next hour or so, but I'm in my office. Sorry about that.
Well, let's just tell people the reason you had to answer that is because what is your current job right now?
I'm vice president of security for the Denver Broncos football club.
There you go.
There you go.
I mean, just think about I can't wait for our listeners to hear this whole story, because here's a guy who's a very close friend of mine, but has done things that we all dream about doing. I mean, going to a major high school, holy cow, the stadium seating 10 to 30,000, maybe up to 80 to 100,000. Goes to the NFL, plays college football, goes early to the NFL draft, becomes a DEA agent, goes back to NFL football. This is going to be one of the best interviews we've ever done right here.
I'm very fortunate.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about
Did I mention how humble he is? Because this man is. I'm not bullshitting. He's very humble.
Now, you played the same position in high school that you did college and pros?
No, I was a defensive lineman, defensive tackle in high school. And then I played offensive center in high school. I was like backup center if emergency situations, which never happened. But and then I played some guard too. That's because, well, yeah. So anyway, but I was defense, and then I went out of college. I went to Nebraska initially, and was defensive lineman, and then they moved me to offensive lineman at Nebraska, and I was there for 2 years, and then I left, and I didn't get along with the head coach at Nebraska, and
Was that Tom Osborne at the time?
yeah, and so it was, and then my mom was sick and with cancer, and so it was the spring. It was a spring game, and me and another player, whoever, this is my sophomore year or going into my sophomore year, and whoever it's after my freshman year, sophomore year. It was whoever scored the best in the spring game would be marked for starting center the next season. And I had a very good game and spring game, and the grades came out, and I was not going to be the starting center, and it was like, well, this is bullshit. And old players, I mean, that were seniors graduated, Rick Bonas and Vince Ferragamo and different guys. They were like, dude, this is bullshit. You need to leave. And so it's like, screw it, I'm gone. And so I was just going to go home. My dad was an architect, had a construction company in Midland, and my mom was sick. So I was like, I'm done with this. I'm going home. And so I get home and I'm going to start working with my dad. And he's like, and my mom are like, if you can get your schooling paid for, don't be stupid, go to school. And Baylor had recruited me. I was heavily recruited coming out of high school. So that's when I went to Baylor.
Before we get too far in, how many offers did you have coming out of high school, and why did you pick Nebraska? Because, by the way, you know what the N on Nebraska's helmet stands for? Knowledge.
Knowledge. Yeah.
Knowledge. See, you know.
Yeah. I'm not stupid. I know how to spell.
Yeah.
And but anyway, my senior year, I was very highly recruited, and in practice, I got kicked in the side of the foot, and it broke my little toe. And so I had a break on the outside of your little toe, and the tendon that attached to it, and it pulled it back. So the doctor said, take 2 weeks off, and then you can start playing again. So I took 2 weeks off. Well, all these schools, I mean, I can't remember how many schools were recruiting me. It was all over the country, and everybody quit talking to me except for Nebraska. I mean, everybody. It was like,
because of the injury?
Yeah, because of a broken little toe. And
Jeez.
it was like, well, they probably, they're saying it's a little toe, but what is it that's really wrong with the kid and all this kind of stuff, so. But anyway, Nebraska always kept recruiting me. And plus the guy that was recruiting me from Nebraska, Jerry Moore, he went on from Nebraska to Appalachia State and was wrecking setting coach there. Great guy, but he played for my high school coach in Bonham, Texas. And so there was a little more knowledge sharing. And so Jerry always kept recruiting me strong. And so that was kind of the determining factor why I'm going to Nebraska. They never quit recruiting me. And then after I got there and then went through whatever, and then when I went back, it was like, well, my old high school offensive line coach was now coaching at Baylor. So I got a hold of them and said, hey, I want to walk on, at Baylor if y'all will let me.
But the problem back with the NCAA in that day, right, was you had to sit out a year, didn't you? It's not like the transfer portal
yeah.
now. You had to sit out for a year before you could be eligible, right?
Yeah. And I did have to sit out. I mean, you redshirt. That was my redshirt year, was sitting out.
But you could still go to practice and do stuff, right?
Yeah, you were a practice, like in the NFL, you were a practice squad guy. You ran plays against the defense. And
so you were the Rudy Rudiger for the Baylor Bears.
Yeah, and in fact, I won the Golden Egg for that year for being a good practice guy.
The Golden Egg?
Or something like that. It was something golden. It was
the golden turd.
You're a good egg. You're a good egg.
It was like I got a little trophy. I think I still got it, but it had diapers on it, and it was like it was. I mean, Baylor. I love Baylor. I'm not Baptist. I grew up Church of Christ. The Holy Rollers, and went to Baylor, and Baylor's Baptist, centric school, but back then in the late 70s when I was there, it was like 50% were Baptist professors and 50% were whatever. And it was like, if you cheated and got caught, you were out no matter who you were. And, I got caught cheating one time, but I didn't get kicked out because I even copied the person I was cheating off of in the name slot. I copied their name on the name slot too. So they, no, I'm teasing.
The N on the helmet truly stands for knowledge. Yeah. Yes. You learned a lot out of Nebraska.
That really did happen, but it wasn't me. So.
Man.
So, but
so now then I went to Baylor.
But how many offers do you think you would have had coming out of high school?
I don't know, because my coach kept them all. He didn't give any of them to me till after we had finished our senior year.
Oh, okay.
So I had a stack,
You should have went to. All I can tell you, you should have went to Notre Dame.
I had letters from Notre Dame.
Well, you should have went.
Well, I had
Well,
letters from USC too.
He
No,
was smart
no,
enough. He was smart enough to turn down Notre Dame.
And that's not South Carolina, Steve. That's Southern California.
California.
That's not USC. That's University of South Carolina. Come on now.
And it has been, I think, 1,122 days since USC last beat Notre Dame. So we're going to keep the streak going. So anyway.
Well, and then one of our players we just got was talking today or yesterday, day before, anyway, on an interview, and he was talking about all his family were all University of Southern California guys and girls, and he went to UCLA, and he goes, yeah, but he goes, we beat them this past year. I think he said we put 60 on them. So I didn't follow the game or anything, but he said none of his family would speak with him. So you always have great college stories. I mean, there's always.
I bet you there were some good rivalries down in Texas too that could rival that. So, but you did that redshirt year. So now it would be kind of what, your fourth year of college. You're actually playing your third year of football, right?
Yeah, but it's really my first year. I played I was in one or two games my freshman year on varsity at Nebraska. Then they moved me back to the freshman team, which was good because it was solely a freshman football team that you went around and played equivalent competition. And then at Nebraska. And then my sophomore year, I didn't get to play much at Nebraska. And then redshirted at Baylor, and then I played that next year, that was my first year of playing.
First full year of playing.
Yeah. And then my senior year, I got hurt in the first preseason game, non-conference game, blew my knee out, and so I didn't play my whole senior year until the bowl game. I got to play in our bowl game. We played in the Peach Bowl against Clemson.
And
then I got drafted after that.
No. Did you win?
Yes, I can't remember what the score was. So.
Now wait a minute. So you first of all, you injure your toe, you lose a lot of offers, and then you only play a couple games at Nebraska, not too much the second year. You redshirt, you play a year at Baylor, then you blow out your knee in a non-conference game, and you still get drafted early.
Well, I was 6th round. It's not early.
Well, I meant, but you went early. Well, when I say early, did but you finished your senior year? You graduated from Baylor?
Well, I had to go back to graduate. That's a whole nother good story. But because
that's what I meant by you left early for the draft, right? You didn't complete college.
No. I 5 years. I mean, well, I didn't play that. I guess now you'd probably be able to play another year but back then I had already redshirted.
Yeah, so you 1 year of eligibility.
So you got 5 years to do 4, and going into my 5th year to do my 4th year of eligibility, I blew my knee out. So I was, and then I got to play in the postseason game against
the Peach Bowl.
Clemson.
Clemson. I don't like Clemson either, so we have something in common. No offense to you Clemson fans out there, but I don't think it's going to be a good year for Clemson this year. But we'll see. Anyway, I digress.
Rebuilding year.
Rebuilding, yeah. Hey, but in spite of all of that, you still the 6th round. I mean, you think about all the people who play football, high school football, then those who go to college football, and then those who even make it into the NFL. So even the 6th round is like you're still the top 1% of the 1% that are getting picked. Even with a blown out knee, how did that happen?
I was going to say, you must have played one heck of a game in that bowl game for them to put you in the draft after you've missed a whole year.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm very fortunate. And the other thing that I was very fortunate about was that Whitey Duvall was the offensive line coach for the Broncos, and he came down, worked me out at Baylor. I mean, and basically kind of talked with me, and he had already watched film and everything. And he was one of the great offensive line coaches in NFL. And he had come from New England with Red Miller. And So I think he pushed for me as well to get me. He's since passed, but my rookie year, I had Whitey as my offensive line coach for uh, at the Broncos, and I was very fortunate to have him as a rookie. You
So
know,
you had Red and Whitey. All you
yeah,
needed was Mr. Blue.
Blue.
yeah,
Bluey.
that was
Blue.
it.
Well, let's talk about what it's like to be a rookie in the NFL. It's in those days,
Yeah.
everybody you had to have a. I mean, actually, one of the guys I used to work with a long time ago played with the Dallas Cowboys, and but the minimum I think salary when he was there was like $75,000. Did they had a minimum salary right for anybody who went to the NFL?
Oh yeah, yeah. And then I mean I think my signing bonus was I think 17,500, and then my first year I signed a 2-year contract. I think my first year was 30,000. My second year was 40,000, and my signing bonus was 17,500. If I
No
remember
wonder you
right.
had to go work for the government. You had to be able to make a living.
Jeez.
Yeah, but that's the 6th round. I don't know what the the first and second, third round draft choices were getting back then, but
Probably,
it
obviously,
was a
substantially.
little, oh yeah, it was a lot more.
So, so tell us, what's it like to be a rookie in the National Football League? I mean, we hear stories. I live in Loudoun County, so now they're called the Washington Commanders, but they were the Redskins, and I had we knew kids who worked down there, and some things are fun, and some things are like making the rookies buy everything. You go out with them, it's like, hey, rookie, pay for this, pay for this. So, what was it like to be a rookie with the Denver Broncos, and what year was that? What was your rookie year?
1980 was my rookie year, and it was they didn't. Well, you had to get up and sing and at training camp and sing your fight song, college fight song, and it was hard. I mean, it was training camp was tough back then, and
Did they have it in Greeley, Colorado?
well, no, my first 2 years it was in Fort Collins, and Fort Collins was great
Yeah.
because it was right up against the mountains, and you'd have that weather come in. In the mornings, it was cool and overcast, and then in the evenings, when you go out for your second practice, because back then you had 2 hard practices a day, and it come in, and then you'd have more weather would generally come in. Sometimes it's pretty bad thunderstorms and like that, but you had the weather impact. Now, when we moved to Greeley, you're out in the stockyards basically, and
That's the smell of money, baby. Cattle.
yeah, yeah, but I mean, it got hot. I mean, really hot. But it's the thing that's so great about Colorado is you got to deal with the altitude, but there's no humidity, so you're not battling that in cold or in heat. You're not battling the humidity. You're battling the elevation. And I was in really good shape my rookie year, but man, I remember Coach Miller just laughing because he goes, boy, that monkey got on your back, because I mean you're doing your drills and everything, and then you always had to do sprints and stuff, and it would hit, and you thought you were going to die. You thought everything was going to come out, your lungs, but you get used to it after like 6-8 weeks. All the studies, it's you go there, do your physical exercise, and get out, because you're not going to acclimate. You're going to start high, and then you just go down, and then you stay down, and then you start building back up. So it's like it takes a while, but it was hard. It was they give you a hard time. They did, but if you were humble or a little bit, they knew you were sincere, and they knew you had talent. Then it segued to people treating you good quicker.
Yeah. You had to show that dedication, determination, and perseverance.
Yeah. And how you dealt with a little bit of adversity. I mean, you had people like Gratishar and the guys everybody hears about. We were up in Fort Collins, and you're in a dormitory at the university, and it's hot, so you'd get the box fans, the great big box fans that you'd go buy for back then. They were probably $7 or something like that, and you put it in your window at night. You'd open your windows up, and you'd put that box fan in there and turn it on so it'd cool, because at night it gets cool. But Gradishar and them, they get out on the ledge and tape smoke bombs to the screen and light those things. And so then you'd be in there sleeping, and you're a rookie. You're all worried about what's going to happen tomorrow. Are they cutting me tomorrow? Is the Turk going to be out? And all of a sudden, your room's just full of smoke, from the smoke bombs. So. And then you'd be coming in the evenings, and they'd be up on the roof with pails of water, and they'd dump water from 6 floors up, and it'd hit you.
Oh, that hurts.
It'd about knock you out. Not really, but I mean, it would shock you if they got you. And
I bet.
so, there was a lot of fun, but and you thank goodness, because that breaks up the
monotony of
woe is me, woe is me, woe is me. What's going to happen? Then,
Well, you start to build camaraderie with your teammates as well.
Yeah.
Hey, so what was the biggest difference you noticed between playing college ball and pro ball? What was the first thing that stood out to you in terms of because you'd always watch. The reason I say that is that there are some people who do so good in college, but then when they hit the pros, they just can't hack it. Then you get people who were okay in college, but then they hit the pros, and it's like a Tom Brady, it goes from nobody knew who this guy was to Tom Brady. So for you, what was the biggest difference between playing college ball and playing pro ball?
Bigger, faster, and stronger, but it was like really faster. I mean, like you'd see people running, and it's like, damn, and you'd see individuals here and there in college that you'd go, oof, but you'd see a bunch of people like, whoa, and strong, but the mental aspect of it is the biggest. I would say is the biggest thing, is getting yourself in the right mind frame, the mental toughness, and the bullshit meter out. Don't get led astray, don't get distracted. I mean, just that mental part of it, and then to be able to go out each day and practice and prove yourself. And then in the game, when you're in the game, games are easier than the practice and everything else, because then it's a lot more. You're not in a pass rush drill, or you're not in a a run blocking drill where the defensive guy knows you're run blocking, or the defensive guys know that you're taking pass sets and stuff. So, and the games to me were easier than the practice, because, or scrimmages, when you're a controlled scrimmage, and but that the mental part of it is a huge factor, but the size, speed, toughness, and basically the snot bubbles that you most frequently get the hell knocked out of you, and being able to, that's part of the game, laugh it, and then try to do it to the next person.
Oh, man.
I can't imagine.
So, how long was it before you got your first rep in a NFL game?
Oh, right away. I played a lot my rookie year. I played a whole lot, and I didn't start, but I think I started a couple of games because of injury to other offensive linemen. But I played a lot my rookie year, and it was fun. I mean, it's played the Cowboys, played the Raiders, played the Chargers. All my dad's family is from San Diego. I grew up loving Lance Allworth. He was my idol as far as a player, and and obviously I was never a receiver, but just the Chargers. All my dad's family, we'd go out there twice every year during summer break and Christmas holiday, and it was playing the Chargers. Sheesh, it was the Cowboys, the Oilers, and I mean it was neat.
These are things
first couple of years.
most young guys just dream of, kids.
Yeah.
You dream of this kind of stuff, and you actually got to do it. That's fantastic.
Well, I remember I called my parents because my parents, both of them passed the same year, but I remember I called them because Craig Morton was still with the Broncos when my rookie year. And so I'm out of practice and I'm snapping to Craig Morton. I called my parents, and had to call them on a hard line because we didn't have cell phones back then. And, hey, I snapped into football to Craig Morton today, because we'd all grown up watching Craig Morton, Roger Staubach, and all that. So
That's
growing up in
unbelievable.
Midland. So
Midland.
That is
So
cool.
who was the quarterback your first year? Because I know Elway didn't come into like 83 or something, right? 84?
83. Matt Robinson, if I remember right. They brought Matt Robinson in. I really liked him. He was either from the Giants or the Jets. He's from New York team. And we had Matt Robinson. Then Craig was there, I believe. I know he was there during training camp. I don't know if he retired then or stayed on. We had Matt Robinson, and then Steve DeBerg came, I think, the next year. And we had Norse Weiss, and then John came in 83. We had Mark Herman, I think, came in 82. And then Elway came in 83.
Yeah, being a Notre Dame guy and watching Notre Dame play Stanford and stuff like that, that was kind of the big thing. It was called the Elway Watch. I think everybody's wondering, where's John going to go? And it was kind of a contentious thing because the last thing he wanted to do was play for the Baltimore Colts, but that's who he was drafted by to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, we were fortunate enough to get him. And then we played them in a preseason game that year. And I mean, it was 117 degrees on the turf, on the grass field at the Baltimore Stadium. And that's where the Orioles played, and they were in the pennant race. So half the field was still baseball dirt diamond.
Man.
And it was down on the field. It was like 117 degrees. And I lost, honest to God, like 27 pounds in that, because in training camp and everything, they weigh you before you go out, and then they weigh you coming back in. So it was weigh out and then weigh in. And it sounds reverse, but they wanted to see how much so they could regulate and know that, okay, that dude lost a lot. He's got to, replenish. And, but I mean, it was kind of comical because we had those, I don't have a helmet, a blue helmet, that light blue, sky blue helmet. And then we had our white uniforms, and I sweat a lot. And after I had rolled in that dirt enough, I mean, it was.
You looked like you played for the Cleveland Browns.
I would disappear. Only thing you'd see is my helmet. When I go back into the dirt. And Reeves, wasn't Reeves. Yeah, it was Reeves. Reeves was running the film back and forth. Everybody was laughing because I just disappear. You just see, boom, and then you'd see my blue helmet going. But I mean, they had the nuke Elway and all that kind of stuff. It was there's so much fun that behind the scenes that people don't get to know about, that but it's what makes the game so fun. I mean, it's
kind of like the practical jokes that cops pull on each other.
Yeah,
Public never knows about them, but they're hilarious.
And there are some, if they found out about them, some of those might be indictable. I'm not sure, but
statute of limitations run out on ours.
Yeah, but thank goodness there weren't any cell phones back in those days.
That could record video. That's correct, man. If they had those back in college, man, a lot of us might not have the jobs we do. So
no.
Hey, well, so now, I mean, like now you're playing, but at some point though, I don't want to short circuit the whole thing, but at some point you kind of you get to a Super Bowl for the first time with Elway, right? That was your first Super Bowl you were in, right?
Yep. I played in 3, and it was after the 86. It was the 87 Super Bowl, the 88 Super Bowl, and then the 90 Super Bowl. So it was the 86 season, the 87 season.
Yeah.
We played those 2 Super Bowls, and we got beat by the Giants and then we got beat by the Redskins. And then we missed a year. And then my last year, we got beat by the 49ers. So we didn't score enough points in all three of the games to win one of them.
Well, that's a different way of looking at it.
Well, it was lopsided, and we had a better team than that. But I mean, the first two, we were as good as our opponent. We got outplayed. We got beat.
Yeah.
The 49ers had a great team, and they kicked the hell out of us.
That was Joe Montana, right?
Yeah, and they were a better team than us. The first two, we got. I mean, obviously we got beat, but I mean, the talent measurement, we compete with those two teams.
So with all things being equal, what's the deciding factor then in a game like that? Is it like some coaches will say, look, we got out coached? Was it the mental attitude of the team? What was the thing that was the big deciding factor in that game that gave them the edge over you guys, even though you guys were basically on par, talent wise?
It's such a momentum game. And the thing about this, at least for me, is you don't get tired in the Super Bowl. I mean, other games you get, but you're so fired up and everything. But that momentum gets swung, and one screw up here, one screw up there, another screw up there, and a screw up here, and a screw up there, and then all of a sudden you're way behind. And then the other team, that mental focus, and it's like done deal. But in the playoffs, it's you play the regular season and it's hard. But once you make the playoffs, it's that again harder. I mean, the physical, the output from the players, and then you win that first one, you go that next playoff game, that's harder, and then you go that next one, and then that's harder. Now you're going to the Super Bowl, and then it's like Katie bar the door, and each game, the intensity of the play and the focus and everything, and hopefully the fans see that, because it's such an increase. And the teams that know that have the veteran players that express that and get the younger players to realize, hey, this shit's on. That's the successful
It helps them to get
teams.
prepared.
Yeah.
When you're doing this, are you seeing your family at all?
Yeah. It's not bad, but you are kind of like the night before the game, they separate you and stuff like that. You may go out early for a few days, then they'll bring all the families out, and then the families, then you get to spend time with your family. And then it's back to night before the game. It's like home game. Well, it depends on the coach, whether you're separated as a team and that's the head coach's call.
Well,
and the general manager.
The first 2 years that you guys went to the Super Bowl, you got selected for a special honor, didn't you? Did you get selected for Pro Bowl?
Yeah, I was. Those 2 years, and then my next year, I had a brilliant coach. I'm not going to name him, but
that sounds like sarcasm.
We were in practice, and he told the defensive guys, the practice team, the fire off on us. And this guy that was probably 300 and something pounds, he goes full blast because the coach told him to, and he hits my thumb and completely obliterated. So anyway, I missed half my season of the next year. So I didn't.
Oh, geez.
I was first alternate. So that kind of, and then the next year, me and Reeves didn't see this. So anyway, that was my last year. And then, but yeah, I was highest vote getter of AFC.
Wow.
According to what the coaches said. So yeah, it was a huge honor, and that
absolutely, man.
So I got to ask you, 10 years playing Pro Bowl. By your 10th year, you don't have to disclose it, but you're making pretty good coin after 10 years now, right? With the Pro Bowl and the awards you get.
My last 2 years, I was the highest paid offensive lineman in the league.
Well,
Wow. Not
But
bad.
that's back
that's
then.
not a quarterback,
Now,
right?
well, here's the comparison, because John and I always laugh about it. Not anymore because we're too old, but it was back during I think we had 3 strikes while I played in my 10 years. And one of the strikes, the older people remember, it was 55% of the gross. That's what so we had this big meeting down in New Mexico and Players Association, and I was one of the player reps. And so we were all down there, and they took a vote who supported the 55%. And they said, "Who's opposed?" And I raised my hand, and I was the only one that raised their hand against it. And I was for free agency. Like, when they were, Mrs. Ed Garvey and Gene Upshaw and all that crew. And Gene became we became good friends. But anyway, I was free agency, and they were 55% of the gross. So anyway, boom, into my career. I'm the highest paid offensive lineman in the league. I leave. 3 years later, my salary was the average salary of a backup lineman in the NFL. So that just puts it in perspective, because like a year or two later, free agency came about, and that the salaries,
skyrocketed from there.
Yeah, I was well compensated, and
Well, you get, if you make it to the Super Bowl, whether you win or lose, you get a bonus on that. You probably get a bonus for the Pro Bowl selection, right? The playoffs.
Yeah. The and I don't know what it is now, but then the winning team, because you got a check for each playoff game, and it wasn't a lot. It was like $2,500 for this game, $5,000 for this game, $7,500 for the Super Bowl to the loser, $15,000 to the winner. It's something along those, or it may have been $7,500 to the losing team, each player, and $10,000 to the winner of the Super. To each player. It was something along those lines. But then in your contracts individually, you could have, you make the Pro Bowl, you got 20,000, 25,000, whatever, something along those lines like that.
Some incentives are built into it.
Yeah.
So, you become the highest paid lineman. You get the Pro Bowl honors. You're in 3 Super Bowls. So, what the hell possessed you to leave and join DEA?
Well,
I mean, how did you take a few hits without the helmet on? I mean, what happened? Just be honest with us here, Keith.
Well, in '86, both my parents passed away, and so that was it was during the off season, and it was really bad. And my dad had always, he said, "Son, do whatever the hell you want to do, but just don't do dope." And
what do we say, Steve? What do we tell our kids? We say, kids, don't do math. Yeah.
Well, back then it was all inclusive. Don't do dope. And so anyway, while I was playing back in the old days in the '80s, you could do whatever to make up money in the off season. Appearances. Some of the guys played on basketball teams. The Broncos basketball team. They go around playing, and people pay to but you had to do 3 appearances in the community that were like pro bono, for community relations, and so you had to do 3. And then if you couldn't do 3, or you didn't want to do 3, you could go to one of your teammates and you could say, "Hey, Steve," or "Hey, Morgan, will y'all do an appearance for me?" And they go, yeah. So that's 2. So then I'd go to the PR guy and say, "Hey, Morgan's doing one appearance for me and Steve's doing the other." And they go, "Okay, you're covered." But anyway, so I would go around and I would talk to kids at schools, and it was like junior high graduation, whatever, awards banquet, little things like that. But on Mondays after the games on Sunday, you play games Sunday. Monday, you go in, you watch the film, you exercise, get the soreness out, and then Tuesdays was your day off. Well, we had the Denver SWAT was our security for the Broncos back then. There's five guys that were the Denver SWAT were our security, and so on Monday nights, because Tuesdays were a day off, I'd go ride with Denver SWAT, and spend the evening riding. They're called Metro here, and I'd ride with them, and shit, we all became friends and go out shooting and all that kind of stuff. And then, so I was speaking to the kids and stuff, and I started taking one of the cops with me. And so they'd go with me to speak to the kids, and I'd talk to them about football and let them ask all that kind of stuff. And then we'd talk about drugs and stuff and have the police there with us and, staying out of trouble and stuff. And the people were always wanting to pay me for doing that. And the pay would go to the police officer that went with me. And so that was, it's Bruce Tao, he retired from DPD and he was killed in Iraq, doing the contracting stuff there. And then Mark Lewis, he just passed away from a few years back. He was doing it. And then Kenny Overman, who's still here, he's retired, but he's head of security for a huge conglomerate here. So I see him at games. And then Bob Snyder, I don't know where he took off somewhere. And then Dave Abrams, who retired, but he was my position before I came back. So those are the five guys. I'd take them with me and they would talk to the kids, and then the people would pay them, and the people loved it that money wasn't going to me. It was going to the police officer, because it was fun to police back then. And anyway, that was doing, and then DEA got wind that I was doing that. And then Steve knows this guy, Ron Hollingshead, was the recruiter, demand reduction guy in Denver. And so he would come over and stuff, and we'd get them memorabilia they'd take to auctions and, fundraisers and stuff. And we got to be all friends. So DEA flew me around to like Aspen and stuff like that. And Hollingshead was one night we were sitting at a bar having a couple of drinks, and he goes, "What are you going to do when you quit playing?" And I go, "I'm not sure. I'll probably coach, but I'm not sure. I've always been kind of interested in law enforcement because my parents had passed, and my dad had always said, 'Don't do dope.' And he said, 'Don't do drugs,' And excuse me. And so he slams his DEA badge out on the table at the Emerald Isle and over in Aurora, which is still going, and I still go there for wings and a couple of beers. And he goes, "This is what you need to do." And that badge it got me. That's a cool looking badge,
Yes, it is.
And so I got, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah." And so anyway, so I get done, but
are you still carrying it? Look at you. And for our listeners, he just pulled his badge out of his back pocket to show it to us.
And always on me.
To still have the retired piece on it?
Oh yeah. I'm not. I told you I got the N on my helmet for a reason.
Yeah, Steve.
I honestly, mine popped off. I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Yep, it just popped off.
Bullshit.
I'm serious. I found it in the driveway one day.
Yeah, Steve just badges his way into everything. Sorry, DEA, move aside here.
Well, the problem is when I use this one, it's set in this plexiglass. It don't quite work.
It's kind of hard to carry around. Yeah. Yeah, I did 30 years at DA, and all they gave me was this plexiglass little badge. So
with a plastic badge inside.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I still got
your handcuffs there.
That personal use only there, Keith.
Why do they have fur on them? Why is that? Why are they wrapped in pink fur?
Yeah. Come on, this is a family interview. I'm trying to think if there's
No, it's not, dude. You have not listened to our podcast then.
Okay, here you go.
This is not the Disney Channel.
Hold on. Y'all are going to have to describe this for your fans because this is a good one.
Okay, so this is play-by-play. Keith has just taken off his headset. He is now moving towards the back of the office. He's getting something. Steve, I don't know. Does he still move as fast as he used to on the football field?
As big as he is, yes, he did. Oh, what are you doing with that?
I don't think. No, we can't do that. Oh yeah, okay, we can do that. All right. So what he has, what Keith has a collection of bobbleheads. They are the 2016 candidates for president, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. And these are good bobbleheads. Those are pretty good things.
And what do you have there?
It's a magnifying glass. Oh, okay.
What does that say? I can't read it.
It's a prison number.
On one of them's jumpsuit. We'll let you decide which one.
Yeah, we can't say. We don't do politics here, so we're just going to let people guess. Yeah. Got it. We're going to let people guess.
And he's back up out of his chair again.
And there he goes, folks. He's making a run for the end zone. He has recovered the fumble. He's going. He could go all the way.
He's putting his bobbleheads back up. That's supposed to be some really good bobbleheads, man.
Oh, man. Well, he's disappeared. Oh, there he is. Okay, he's back now.
Well, he had on his blue helmet.
And those are from before the election. Those are collector's items.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Hey, we could barely see you. I mean, could you put your blue helmet on so we can track you as you go through the office here?
I honest to God, I don't have a helmet in here.
Well, you got one right behind you.
That's a motorcycle.
Well, it's still a helmet.
Yeah.
I dare you to.
Look here.
What is it?
Got a target. Okay. Yeah. That's not bad when you're 5 feet away. What do you do when you have to shoot from farther away?
Get a rifle.
Tell you what, you start running, we'll see. See how far.
Hey, what I'm not seeing anywhere in there that it says DEA narcos on it. You got to put up where nobody can see it?
Well, he's got it behind the picture of the goat. He does have a picture of a goat on his wall. Here we are. We're trying to do a podcast, and yet Keith he's looking for all of his memorabilia.
He's taking his headphones. That's SOD. I see SOD, Special Operations.
All right. I don't know what he's got.
I thought I had a narcos in here.
Well, you will have soon. Put your headset back on.
Yeah, Keith. Hello, Keith. We're doing a podcast here. Keith, hello.
You will have soon. You will have soon, I'm telling you.
Yeah. As long as it's free, Steve's fine with that. Well, so he slammed the badge down. You took one look at it, and it was love at first sight.
Well, no, it stuck. I mean, it just, boom, there's that's okay. That's in the thought process.
And that's why it looks like that.
Yeah.
How many other people think it's worked for? It's a good recruiting tool.
Yeah.
But
it's upside down New York City badge, ain't it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Now, I think ours is right side up. Theirs is upside down.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So how long of a process was it for you then? Now, did that in any way influence your decision to leave the NFL, or what was that decision?
No.
Okay.
No, it was, that was, when I left, I was hurt, angry, and my agent, who is just a great guy, I haven't seen him in a while. We had dinner when I first came back, but great, Bob Warren, he's a great guy here. And Al Davis was calling, and Bobby Bethard was calling Bobby Bethard was in San Diego, and Mr.
Davis of the Raiders.
Yeah, not me. They were calling Bob, and he tell Keith to come on. And I told Bob, I go, I'm done. I've had it. I've spilt my blood. I'm done, and I was ready to move on. And
what was
just
the deciding?
Being hurt.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the one thing. You watch some of these documentaries, and I feel sad, really bad for a lot of these guys that are every day they get up, they got to ice their back, they've got to do stuff. I mean, just the toll on your body. Were you at that point to where it was that bad, or were you afraid it was going to get that bad?
I was emotionally hurt, not
Okay.
I mean, I'd had a lot of surgeries. I think I'd had 14 surgeries by then. But some of them, some of those are scopes and, just change the oil in the knees and stuff like that. But, I had some major surgeries too. Like I'd ruptured a peroneus tendon in a foot, and I'd have both knees reconstructed, and I'd have my hand rebuilt, and or thumb, the crux of separating us from others is the thumb and all that kind of stuff. But no, I had another 3-4 years in me of
What
playing,
was the deciding
barring any,
factor? Right.
just giving my perception of giving so much and then getting tooled, and my last year, and
What do you mean by that? You're getting tooled. I
well,
mean,
I
too old or tooled?
tooled, screwed,
Oh, okay.
and it was. I mean, it was like every week we'd play somebody, and after the game, I did deep snapping for punts and extra points, field goals. Did that as well my whole career, and I got paid good for it. And but after games, people were coming up to you from the other teams. What's going on? Why aren't you playing? Just on and on and on. We're at the Super Bowl, and the producer for sports, I can't remember what network it was, but he was one of my college fraternity brothers. Alan Stone he was the producer, and he was like, he goes, Keith, all the 49ers say they know you're playing in the Super Bowl. And he goes, what's going on? And I go, Alan, I was a team captain. I was team captain for like 7 years. And so it's like, I'm not going to be the disgruntled, disheveled teammate that's spewing all this stuff, before Super Bowl. So it's like, Alan, I can't talk about it. And he goes, come on, you just give me some, and it's like, I can't. And, and he was naming what players on the 49ers were saying, and it was their team leaders and stuff. So, and it was, you get that hurt, and then financially, it would have been really smart for me to kept playing, because if I could have gone 3 or 4 more years,
Free
I could have.
agency.
Well, yeah, and I would have had, but I had already deferred my paychecks. I think they went for 11 years after I retired. I got this much this year, and defer 5 years, ding, 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 ding. And then the next year it was, okay, now defer those, ding, 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 ding. So I had deferral payments coming to me from the Broncos for, I think it was 11 years after I'd retired. So that helped, because I went from highest paid offensive lineman in the league to a GS7 DEA agent making, what was it, Steve? 37,500.
I'm not even sure it was that much.
with 3 kids, 3 young kids. So
you needed the deferral payments to
be
able to live, didn't you?
No, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But anyway, so it was that I got screwed. Screw y'all, I'm done. And that mentality. But I thank God that I did that, because DEA never would have happened. Because when I finally got it, because they had to do my background, it took them a long time, because you got this old guy, this former football player, that, to do back, it took, I think it was almost 10 months to do my background.
How old were you at the time?
When I walked into Quantico, I turned 35 in Quantico.
Yeah,
and so I was 34, and then the retirement age was 35. And then while I was in there, 55. And while I was in there, it got bumped to 57.
Yeah.
So
you just
I could have gone 2
it.
more years, but it never would have happened. I mean, it was because they went on hiring freeze. I think it was the class after mine. They went on a 2 or 3 year hiring freeze, Steve?
Yeah.
I mean,
it was quite a while.
It was a long, so it never would have happened. And I wouldn't trade DEA for Nothing.
So what year did you start DEA?
92. January of 92.
Before we get into that, I just want to bring up a couple of things here. One, you mentioned that you were the team captain for 7 of your 10 years.
Yeah.
That, for our listeners that don't know anything about football, that is a position of honor that your teammates select you. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. But
So
coaches try to, or back then they would try to, but I was.
They try to influence.
You have several team captains. I was one of the. I wasn't the only team captain. I was a team captain for 7 years. One of the team captains.
But that's a true position of honor amongst your teammates, that they would think enough about you to select you. And there's one thing that we didn't cover in your football career that's referred to as the drive. You remember that game?
Yeah.
In Cleveland?
Yeah.
Did you have your blue helmet on there?
Oh, yeah. That's all we had. We had the old blue helmets. And
was it scarred up with beer cans and stuff that was coming out of is it the dog pound?
No, the dog pound. Not that game, but in previous games. Well, listen.
I read up on it. It says it was that game.
Yeah, that was the 98-yard drive, right? In like 5 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah. And but what it was is they were throwing the dog biscuits weren't bad. And so they were throwing dog biscuits when you're down at the dog pound. And then they threw some eggs too, because one of John's biggest laughs, he goes, I got hit right, you got your helmet, then you got your face mask. And I got hit right forehead.
Right on the forehead.
Right above the bar of your helmet, face mask. And the egg is running down my face mask. And we're in the huddle, and John said because he was right across from me. And he said he's looking at me, and I'm all serious, and not doing anything. And the egg's just running down like this, and he just bust out laughing. He said he couldn't keep a straight face. He couldn't. He had to laugh.
And unfortunately, that was the best arm on the Cleveland Browns team, and he was in the stands.
And everything was fine then. The dog biscuits, and because you just held your, you kept your face down, and it is hitting on you. It's loud stuff. But then they threw a AAA battery that hit my helmet.
Dang.
And that hit my helmet, and it fell to the ground, and the ref looked in and saw it. And he goes, what? And then we had the wind at our backs. Then we had to turn around and go the other way against the wind because of the battery. Because when they started throwing AAA, you get your shit, that put an eye out, And, so but, and I don't know if that was the Super Bowl the championship game, that one, or if it was just a separate, another game we had in Cleveland where all that shit happened. But
in the 1986 AFC Championship game between you guys and Cleveland, you're credited with a statement that may have energized the team to get back on focus.
We were laughing pretty good on that one. But basically, we're down there, and there was a timeout, and John was on the sideline with Coach, and so we're in the huddle, and the Browns are all in their huddle, and we're standing there, and it's a timeout, and I look over, and they're all looking at us laughing, because it's not looking good.
Yeah.
And so some of our guys are kind of looking. You can see some of the guys are kind of like down, and I go, look at them motherfuckers. I go, they don't know it, but we got them fuckers right where we want them. And everybody just busted out laughing. Seriously laughing. And then you can see the Browns guys, they're looking, and it's like,
what happened?
Kind of like it pissed them off, like, what are they? They're laughing at us, And then John came back in the huddle, and they go, what? Because everybody's, we're all just laughing, and it's one of those. It wasn't planned. It wasn't
right.
It was just spur of the moment.
But and the reason I'm bringing this up,
it turned out really good. It turned out really good.
Yeah, because you guys turned around and won the game. But the reason I'm pointing it out, this is your rookie year, right? 1986, or is this your second?
Oh, no. Shit, I was 7 years in. My rookie year was 80.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, so
that was our first Super
Math
Bowl.
wasn't Murph's strong suit in college, as you can tell.
I've only got 5 fingers on one hand, so I can't. If we get
you
past
actually
5,
have 4
I'm lost.
fingers and an opposable thumb, but that it's a minor difference. Or go ahead.
But the reason I'm bringing this up now is this is what we're getting ready to go into in Keith's DEA career is leadership principles here. You are down and out. You're getting shit thrown at you on the field. You got the other team laughing at you. It looks like there's no way to win the game. You're in a championship game, AFC championship game, and you've got the presence of mind to come up and say something funny, whether you intended it to or not. That's what broke the tension and the despair on your team in the huddle that brought you guys back to win. And then you're being selected.
You got to give number 7 a little credit.
What was his name?
Yeah,
Elwood. John
Elwood. We will send him that clip. John Elwood, said by the former vice president for security of the Denver Broncos.
Elwood of the Blues Brothers.
But here's a guy, too, that you're repeatedly being selected to be a team captain, which shows the outstanding respect your teammates have for you. And this is, ladies and gentlemen, you're getting ready to hear how this is going to continue on into his DEA career. You don't give yourself credit, Keith. You never have. You worked for me. I was blessed to have you in the group, but you never wanted to toot your own horn. So I'm going to toot your damn horn for you today.
That's code. Be careful what he means by that. So,
well, if you were in Kansas,
well, never mind. I'm not going to go there. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I was going to say, if you were in Kansas, it might mean something different, but Keith knows exactly what I mean.
All right. Well, hey, let's get into the good stuff because we have to always ask one question of the people who go through the DEA Academy. When you graduated, by the time you graduated, how many memos did you have to write, Keith? You had to have been picked on a little bit because these instructors know you might be a big guy, but I got the power.
When I first got there, they were all after me. And I was told our class coordinator was Tina Lewis. Was it Matt Lewis's? Matt Murphy. Tina Murphy.
Oh, Matt. There you go. Okay.
Matt and Tina Murphy. Tina Murphy was our class coordinator. And she pulled me aside. It's probably after 4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks of the academy. And she was going, we were doing one of those runs. I don't think it was the FBI lollipop trail, whatever it was, but
Yellow Brick Road.
Yellow Brick Road. And but anyway, we're doing a long distance jog or a distance jog. And she's like, "Keith, can I ask you a question?" I go, "Yeah." And I go, "Sure." And she goes, "Are we too hard on you guys?" I go, "No." Yeah, I go, "No, ma'am. This is you're not." I go, "It's not easy," but I go, this is not too hard. I mean, the physical part of it, the mental part of it. I go, "I've been through 10 training camps," and I go, "That's hard." I go, "What you're doing here, you're pushing it, but it's not. It's because there was accusations being made by some people, and so I guess that's the reason that she was asking me that, and against them as the instructors, and she goes, "Well," she goes, "I don't know if you've noticed, but we've been after you pretty hard these first few weeks." And I go, "Yeah, I figured so." And she goes, "Well, in fact, we all had a bet who would be the one that would get you to quit." And I go, "I ain't quitting." And she goes, "No, we know that. We know that now." But she goes, so they were after me pretty hard. I mean, but it wasn't anything malicious, or it was the way I perceived it and the way I took it and the way I totally felt that the focus they had on me was to, let's see if this, I guess I should first advance. They go, first thing, they thought I was black, NFL, and I flew my own Learjet to Quantico to go to the academy. So that was kind of the stories that were, you know what I'm saying? So,
oh my gosh.
And so It was like, and then after that, I had a blast, and I remained respectful, and she didn't say, "Oh, you got it made" or anything, because you still had to make all the, the PT stuff and the exams and all the other, and the shooting and all that stuff, and so it was. But she was just letting me know that the kind of the little bullshit on the side, that was kind of over, as far as they didn't feel like they knew that in my heart, I wanted to be one of them.
Right. And so would you agree with what I'm getting ready to say here, is that, here you're coming in a sports star, football inside and out, but you don't know much else. That's what you know. And you've made it to that elite, the freaking elite levels of the National Football League. And now you want to come into a position as a law enforcement officer where you're going to have to put up with crap from people in the street that anytime before in a football game, you just knock them out on the play.
Yeah.
And on the street, you got to take it sometimes.
And where people's lives are at
exactly.
stake.
So you'd agree with that. It probably were picking on you harder than anybody else, but they wanted to make sure that you could fit into the mold. And
no, absolutely.
Excellent.
And I think it sold a lot of my classmates, as well as, there was, who all was in there? There was, Sweeten was one of my instructors.
He's a piece of work.
Oh boy, he is. But and I'm trying to think, Griswold was one of my instructors.
Yeah, Steve Griswold.
I thought it was Clark Griswold. I thought we were going to have Lampoon's, Christmas Vacation. So the Griswolds were at DEA.
I'm drawing a blank, but there was others that were Larry Lovelace.
You're talking about some legends in DEA now.
Yeah. Shit. Like who the head of the academy was, and it was. And then my coming out, and we're not there yet, but my first boss is Marty Pruck.
Wow.
I have Marty for my first 5.5 years on the job. It's like having Whitey Duvall at the Broncos for my offensive line coach, but only got him for 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
I had Marty Pruck for 5.5 years.
So I go back to my original question, which was, how many memos did you have to write?
I don't know if I had to write any memos.
I probably wrote enough for both of us, so don't worry about it.
I can't remember.
Okay.
But I was like drawing no attention.
Hey, you remember how when a new class would come in, they'd have two people from the class just ahead of them that have already been there for a few weeks come in and address the newbies. And for my class, or for the class behind me, I was selected along with another guy he and I were the two oldest guys in our class, and he'd been a cop down in was it Waco maybe for a number of years. Had been forced to kill a person down there on duty, and good shoot and all that. And we got in there, and our message to them was, look, you're going to be here for 13 weeks, whatever it was. Go stand on your head. You can stand on your head for 13 weeks. If they tell you go shit in the corner, just say, yes, sir, how high? And the day you get your badge and creds, anybody that's pissed you off, go tell them, screw you, pal. I'm out of here. I got my badge and creds.
Yeah.
And that was the message. But there was this one overweight young lady. Her question was, how serious are they about the PT? 2 days later, she was gone. She found out how serious they were.
Right. Yeah.
Of course, that initial part was from Murph's opening chapter of his new book, How to Win Friends and Influence Enemies. Screw you, pal. I got my badge and creds. You can't touch me. Badges, we don't need no stinking badges. But anyway, back to you, Keith. So there were a couple things we discussed before we started recording that you wanted to talk about. And the first one I want to talk about, it's one that you got written up for in Parade Magazine. And I love that too, because I had an opportunity to do Officer of the Year. We actually had Mike Neal on episode 8, I believe it was, the Arkansas Game and Fish officer involved in the shootout with the sovereign citizens that killed the 2 West Memphis police officers. And I got to be a part of that process. And I just love that Parade would do it at that time, and recognize people. But what I thought was funny was your sense of humor and doing this investigation. So the most interesting case in the world began because you named it Dos Equis.
Right.
Operational name.
I mean,
Well,
a lot of planning went into that. Was that from a bar the night before? What are we going to call this? I don't know. Get me another Dos Equis. That's what it is, Dos Equis.
Well, I had a bar beer sign of Dos Equis. You know, the neon?
Yeah.
Which I had sent to Afghanistan, and it got crushed. But anyway, that might have had something to do with it too. But it was also, it was a moniker for, I think it was Castilla Sanchez. But anyway, I mean, it was. If you've been to Mexico, I grew up in Texas. The lady that was our, I don't want to call her a maid, but she a housekeeper. Both my parents worked all the time, and she was our housekeeper, and her name was Lita Hernandez, and she raised me almost as much as my mom did, as far as from third grade till I went back for my parents' death and burial in 1986. Lita was part of our family, and her husband Johnny, and they sat at the gravesite with me at my parents' funerals 2 months apart. And so I'm not. There's nothing, and I'm adopted, and supposedly one of my grandmothers was full blown Cuban. So I'm somewhere in the 25% Hispanic Cuban blood line, and so nothing derogatory towards the Hispanic Mexican community. I love them, but I love their beer too. And Dos
Oh, you like
Equis
tequila?
was, yeah, I love tequila. But I'm getting old now, so I gotta cut back on the brown water a little bit, you know. So
Understood.
and it's but yeah, but anyway, I wanted to say, yeah, I called it Dos Equis, and I didn't want any negative connotations coming out, because it was tongue in cheek, but it was also kind of a moniker for some of the higher ups.
The bad guys.
What I want to do is tell everybody what the outcome was, and then let's work into the outcome, because this is what you got written up in Parade Magazine for 2004. Basically, is one of the top cops in the United States.
But I was a supervisor. That whole write up is the guys that made that case work.
Which is why you're a great leader, and we get that. But this is what let's talk about the case. Let's talk about what the outcome was. But still, as representing the group, you got the award. But I mean, this is amazing. This is 2004. And you led a DEA strike force in Houston against the international drug smuggling Gulf cartel, seized 11 million in cash, 14,000 kilos of coke, 60,000 pounds of marijuana, and 200 pounds of meth. 30 people were indicted. That's the outcome of this case. And so let's talk about, because you mentioned one thing, and you talked about one of the reasons why you love DEA is people do it for the right reasons. And it was because of the unselfish act of a agent in Dallas that got you started on this whole case.
While you're in Houston.
Yeah. And I had been in Dallas, and that's how I got to be friends with the agent I'm talking about, is Schwan Aziz. And I think Schwan's pretty, I know he's retired now. But anyway, Schwan was up in Dallas. I had my group down in Houston. I had been in Dallas for 8 years, 8.5 years. And then I'd gone and done my headquarters time where Steve and I met. And I'd been in DC for 3 years, did my headquarters time. And then I went to Houston out of DC and was in Houston. And Schwan was doing an investigation up in Dallas, and they got an intercept. I can't remember if it was he was up on phones, or if it was a informant, a consensual recording or whatever. I'm pretty sure he was up on phones, but they got the intercept on one of the Gulf cartel guys, a high ranking guy. And his nickname was Hummer. And he passed that. He called me, and I remember we're out on surveillance. He called me, and he goes, "Hey, I want to pass you a number for Gulf Cartel." He goes, "It's," and he was rattling it off, and he's high up, he's documented, and it's more in your area, the Houston Field Division, which had just about all of the southwest border, and or in Texas, and so it's like that's how that started, and then we get up on Hummer, write that affidavit, get up, and then we're getting into Lascano and Castilla Sanchez and Tormenta and all of them. I mean, we're hitting it all, and we spin and spin and spin and spin, and it's because of a unselfish agent helping out another agent or supervisor that he knew did wire intercepts. Some guys, some girls, they want nothing whatsoever to do with Title III intercepts. And me coming up, thank goodness, with Marty Prock as my first supervisor in Dallas, I did wiretaps and did geolocation on phones and all court ordered, and using the swamp box and the triggerfish and all the different equipment. And then I had Secret Service come and teach me how to do the triggerfish better, and just it's such a great community. And then you get down and you get this golden egg handed to you by Schwann and the Dallas Field Division. And we had Pat Medeiros up at headquarters then that oversaw all the Title III affidavits and approval processes from DEA going over to DOJ. And then you had Julie Weisslich, or Petticord, then married Julie Weisslich, that was always a go-to at OEO. And boom, we get rocking and rolling. And then all this other just starts opening up, where the case went. I mean, I left. I think it started in 2006, if I remember right. I got there in December of 2000. I got there in 2003 to Houston, and this, I believe, it started in 2006, and then I left in December of 2008, and it was going that pretty much that whole time. But the investigation, it spun in all different directions. My group, my guys I had were, and girls, it was remarkable. I mean, we got into radio intercepts.
So how were they moving the dope? What were some of the methods that they were using to move the dope? Airplanes, water.
Yeah, all of it.
Tractor
Trains,
trailers.
tractor trailers. It was you also got to remember is OCL was brought over.
Explain who
into
Houston. Who OCL is, please.
Well, it's OCL Cardenas Guillen was the head of the Gulf Cartel, and what was his name? The friend killer. Wasn't that it? I think it was.
Something endearing.
But that was because he was partners with this Herrera guy. I think it's Herrera, not her name. Yeah, it's Herrera. And this is after he had already started getting, because was it Decina that was the Zeta 1? And anyway, they were going to take over because the old Abrego had been turned over and he was gone as far as head of the Gulf Cartel. And so Herrera and Cardenas Guillen were partnered to move in and take it over. And then Cardenas Guillen had Herrera killed, and I think Decina is the one that did it. They were riding in the car, and Decina was sitting behind, like the Godfather movies, and pops him in the head. And so OCL became nicknamed the friend killer or whatever.
Mata Amigos.
Something, yeah. And anyway, he comes over, and I can't remember what year. I guess I could pull it up. Hang on for a second, because this kind of adds to it, because I sat in on all his debriefs.
On OCLs?
Yeah.
As we use the magic of Al Gore's amazing internet to find out this information.
Well, I was there. It's just I'm too old to remember.
Oh,
I've had too many tequilas.
And what was his name again? John Elwood.
Yeah. Hang on. Where did this see? Let's see. Boss.
Well, that's what we're doing. As you're saying things, we're looking them up too.
Well, if you pull up the picture of him, you see his little brown suit he's got on when they're holding him.
Mm-hmm.
That little brown get up and everything.
Yeah.
That's in my closet in my house.
How did you score that?
I told you I was in on all his debriefing. His orange shoes that he had on. One of the pictures has his orange shoes.
Mm-hmm.
One of my old Saks has those at his house. I think he was sending them to the museum in Quantico, but
wait, that's like one of the agents that actually participated in the capture of El Chapo, this last one before he got extradited to the United States, still has the bulletproof vest that Chapo was wearing when he was arrested.
Yeah,
things like that are pretty cool. I mean,
and I would give his because it's got all his numbers. You can see it's his, but when the hell did he? Or Antonio and Ezekiel? But anyway, he comes across and during the debriefs, because Mike Chavarria, who Murph knows,
yeah, good man,
dear friend, he's retired now, but Mike was because OCL didn't speak a lot of English, and Mike was anyway. We're doing the debriefs when he was being held before we had to turn him over to the Marshal Service, because he came in, I believe, it was on a Friday evening, and then we had to turn him in on Monday to the Marshals. But we're at the sheriff's department, gave us a whole wing of their jail, and so we debriefed him for days a day, and we are asking him, are you smurfing stuff? And he just died laughing. He goes, smurfing. He goes, no. He goes, the money I move, it's semis. He goes, and it's multiple, and it's going all the time. I mean, and so it's.
Hey, just as a matter of tradecraft, because a lot of folks just kind of briefly explain what smurfing is, because it used to be that if you moved money when it would trigger a currency transaction report, used to be $10,000. So they figured some creative ways around it. So what was smurfing?
That's all it was, is just you get multiple people to take 9,000, 8,000, 9,000 cash to Western Union's whatever wire transfer places and smurf it,
They're
and
very, very low ranking people in the organizations. These were expendables.
And he was just laughing so hard, and
because if you wanted to do $1 million, you would need a lot of people if you wanted to smurf $1 million.
And that's what but I mean, he was laughing, but he looked at us because it was like, are you kidding? And I'm going, no, we got to ask these stupid fucking questions, because the higher ups that be with Intel and everything, if we didn't ask this, then that box is not checked. And but it's once you ask it, and then you start building that rapport, and then things start flowing and stuff. And he goes, okay, I got it.
And what he just admitted to you was he was involved in the business.
Oh yeah, but he also, the story about they were the Valencias, the Mexican Valencias, Arturo and Luis Valencia, wasn't it? They were down.
Been too long.
Around the Pearl City. But anyway, I think it was Luis Valencia, because that was one of Chavarria's really good cases. And I'm just looking them up real quick.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything right off the top of my head here.
Here we go. Let's see. Valencia Cartel. Hopefully this is Mexican, not the Colombian. Milenio Cartel. Remember them, Steve?
Wow, I haven't heard that name in years.
Yeah. But anyway, it was Armando Valencia, and Luis, I think, was his brother. But OCL was telling us a story that the brother, and I think it was Luis. It wasn't Armando, but it was Luis. And he lived down the road from OCL. They had a money courier come, and I can't remember the dollar amount. It was $7 million, $11 million. It was in suitcases. And delivers it.
That's a lot of suitcases.
To Valencia. And Valencia's like, this ain't my money. He goes, it's got to be OCL's. So he puts the suitcases in his truck, drives down to OCL's house, and says, hey, your guys screwed up. They delivered your money to me. Here you go. From then on, there was this respect between OCL and the Millennium Group. Then when the other guys wanted to all gang up on the Valencias, the other bad guys, OCL never would do it. So it never would work because OCL wouldn't go in with them because of what? Just doing the right thing as a cartel head, and taking your 11 million, whatever. Well, it was a lot of money. It may have been 15 million, down, put it in his truck, personally taking it down, saying, hey, this is yours, not mine. They messed up. And, so you get those kind of stories. It's just like, that's pretty cool. And it explains why things were happening that you were hearing rumblings, and then boom, that's okay. Cha-ching,
There's you think of it from the other point of view, though. If Valencia had kept that money and OCL went to his couriers and said, hey, where's my $15 million? Oh, we delivered that. Where'd you deliver it to? This address. Yeah. Oh, that's where Luis lives. Wait, where's my money? Then you'd had a war.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And some dead couriers.
And that's, there was a bunch of the guys were, a bunch of the guys were still alive then. You had Pastor and shit, it's like Steve's saying, it's been too long because all that group that on Narco Mexico, they were still kind of rumbling around all in before they started, and so all that stuff. So anyway, and doing the interviews with OCL and stuff, you get that perspective. And then through very good DEA work, we got onto the radio comms that the Gulf were using. And then through the goodness of the U.S., the people all involved in fighting, I'm having to be careful here.
Understood.
All the people that are involved in fighting the narco wars, assistance and expertise. And it went from, okay, they're doing this, they're using this, they're using these type of instruments, they're using this range of frequency. How are we going to get that? And we're doing a meeting with a former military guy that's a contractor that comes to meet with us about, because we're putting trackers on vehicles, and we're putting trackers on vehicles because we're intercepting the Mexicans, the Gulf people. They're sending up cars to a city in Texas, I'm not going to name, to get armored. And then they're going back down for all these high-ranking Mexicans to use when they're driving around. And we're putting trackers on these vehicles that are going down. And, so I'll leave it there. And so, we're getting all kinds of good stuff going on. So people are really helping us. And then this guy comes in because we're looking for trackers that last longer. And because you got to hardwire them and all this. Anyway, but then they find them. And so it's like something that's really discreet, very small, that really works. And so we're sitting there and we're telling him kind of what's going on. And because we got guard guys working with us out of San Antonio too, because they got a counter narcotics thing. And so he goes, well, shoot, he goes, I know some people. And he goes, I'll reach out to them and then And so, boom, we get in touch with this group, and
Their
all
initials wouldn't
legit.
happen to be CIA, would they?
No. Is DARPA, something
Oh,
along that
DARPA.
lines. And anyway, everything is, you got all these different buffers and protections, but everybody's helping us because the flow that we have coming for intel off our intercepts, that we don't have the restrictions. We're sharing with the law enforcement community and everybody else, with Steve, SOD, all these. And it's like people are really coming to help us. And then we get other people coming to help us. And I remember I was sitting in my office, and this guy's talking to me, and he goes, "We're 20 years behind you." And since we're not doing any politics, because this guy was a 180 in political that I am, but he was talking about his 180 side fucking up everything for the past 20 years on this one particular thing. And that's where we were killing it. And so we get up and we start monitoring the radio intercepts, and it's all OEO approved. We're doing everything by the rules, because, and we are killing it. And where it's coming from, the connections with Guatemala, the connections with Cuba, staging tons and tons and tons of the the powder that's coming into the U.S. And you had all these other programs that I won't name that were this being recorded, but that we were laughing about earlier, that had been going on for years. And this investigation just was blowing all of it out of the water. All these informants being paid, and this reporting and stuff, and how it was really happening. We had the breakdown of a kilo of coke at the lab in Colombia, all the way across through the transition countries, Panama and all that, up into either Mexico or coming up in the water and everything, all the way to New York, where it sold for $17,500, which it did 20 years ago. And it was like, if you were a big organization in New York, you got your coke for $17.5 a kilo, or $15.5. I can't remember what it was, but it was, if you knew you were paying more than that, you weren't a big organization. And it just, when you get involved in an investigation like that, it's just like, and Steve will tell you, it's like, just holy cow, because we're passing all these numbers we're getting from other countries, that are involved. And then there's being coordination with the governments that are good, that'll go after stuff. You're passing that information to them. So we had one intercept where I went down to Mexico City, and I'm segueing, but I think people would like to hear this. But we go down, and I can't remember which investigation. It wasn't this investigation, because it was me, and I think Chavarria was with me. But anyway, we're down there, and back, they still had the AFI, and which was like their FBI, but they get recycled every few years, and it name changes and stuff. But anyway, we're down at their AFI headquarters in Mexico City, and this young agent, AFI agent, and I can't remember his name, is Luis something. He's showing me around, and he shows us all over. And then, boom, you go to Man on Fire.
Mm-hmm.
The Denzel Washington movie.
Yep.
And where he's sitting, and they got those red couches where he's sitting at the AFI headquarters, or whatever they're calling them then. And they got those red couches and everything. That is I was back in there. So boom. Anyway, this guy just shows us all over, and we go all over Mexico City, and if I could remember the damn prosecutor's name, Steve would remember him, because he was, and it wasn't Vasconcelos or anything. No, but I think he did get in trouble, but I don't think it was bad. But he was Rigoberto something. It wasn't one of the big names. Everybody's the names that we would know, Steve, he was doing stuff. And he would let us use his personal bodyguards to drive us back to our hotel after we had dinner. Anyway, that young Offie agent that was showing us around during the course of our Dos Equis investigation, we were intercepting, Miguel Trevino and his brother and all that kind of stuff. Well, they're getting ready to kill this guy, this federal Mexican agent. And they say his name. And I go, shit. I think that's the guy that showed me around when I was in Mexico City. So I pull it up on the internet, and if I can remember his name, and Steve will remember this because what the assassin said to him when they killed him. So anyway, it's like, okay, are we going to tell the Mexicans we got an intercept? And I go, we got to tell the Mexicans because they're following this guy. We're intercepting all this stuff, and they're following him around, getting him set up, getting his timetable, everything done. And so we call the Mexicans, or we call our guys down in Mexico City, and obviously we didn't call the Mexicans direct, and doing the right thing. And we called our guys in Mexico City. We said, here's the shit. And we send them everything. We send them the intercepts with Trevino's phone numbers, everything, and setting him up, and boom, they pull this guy. And I mean, the accolades coming back out of Mexico. I don't know if you remember that, Steve, but it was just like, they couldn't believe it. It was like,
you're heroes.
Well, DEA was hero.
Right.
And rightfully so. But then they got the guy anyway. But when they finally got him, and I can't remember if it was a month later, 2 months later, whatever, but they kill him. But the guy walks up to him and says, today is your day. I don't know if you remember that, Steve, but that was all over everything because the people standing around overheard the assassin, and he shoots him right in the face,
Jeez.
And,
why was this guy, why was he targeted?
He wasn't doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Was he dirty before, or was he just not? Was just not cooperating with them, saying, "Look, I'm not going to do your dirty work."
That's what I hope it was.
Okay.
And I think I should leave it there because it was because he had done a lot of stuff. And you go back to the red couches in Man on Fire, all that kidnapping ring and everything, that was all real.
All legit.
I mean, those war walls and all that information about all that stuff, that was all ongoing while I was down there when this guy was showing me around. He showed me around and all that, where all the kidnapping for the Man on Fire stuff, it's all based on true stuff. And we all know who the guy that was strapped over the car, which he was still alive, he was the one that was he was the head of the ring.
And for our listeners here, I know you're probably thinking, just spit it out what you're talking about. We're being very cryptic in this because a lot of this is still classified. And the drug traffickers, they always have better equipment because they have better money. So we don't want to give up anything. Plus, I'm pretty sure Keith's still under some non-disclosure agreements with the U.S. government that have put
for
his
another
ass in
60
prison.
years, as we discussed.
Yeah. I think
so.
It was
That's why it's not coming out explicit what we're doing here.
So then things like that are happening. I know that Karen Tandy was the administrator, and she's down in Guadalajara, and she called up and she wanted to know what we were getting on our intercepts, if they had made any comments about her travels down there. And that's how good of an investigation it was. But Karen and I were good friends. It started off real rough on the Meta case because of the connections with the Columbia and everything there.
Was this like a badge of honor just to be in an be in an interception? Hey, they're targeting me too. Was that some kind of like badge of honor, or was it true? Did they have a true security concern? Karen Tandy.
Oh, no. Absolutely. When you got the head of a presidential appointee traveling internationally,
and the head of DEA.
The head of DEA in Mexico, in Guadalajara. Yeah.
What could go wrong, right?
Well, it's like if you weren't checking on and I'm sure if there's any in Arizona or San Diego, any intercepts going on anywhere, they were checking to see if there's been any rumble, any talk about the administrator traveling. But she called, and and it was, so it was good.
All you have to do is watch Clear and Present Danger with Tom Clancy, Harrison Ford, to see that this shit is real. I mean, that was in the movies, but the point about it is that the cartels have been working against us and other agencies. They're targeting people. They want that kind of intel. They want that kind of information. So they're hitting us as hard as we're hitting them.
Yeah.
So how long does Operation Dos Equis go on before it's over?
It's still going.
Going.
Officially, that investigation is done
because you indicted 30 people.
Yeah, but we got 3 people designated as CPOTs. I think that was the first time that had been done, as instead of being it's a consolidated priority organization target. Yeah. It's an OCDF, DOJ, DEA, FBI.
They're the top tier traffickers that we're targeting.
Yeah. And you got to do all kinds of paperwork and write-ups and everything to get them designated. And I think back then it was, one organization, one CPOT. And we did a submission for 3. And it was Tormenta, Castilla, Sanchez, and Lascano. So you had 2 Gulf guys and the Zeta guy that we submitted. And it was all off our intercepts that we documented everything and proved it, and it was approved as a triumvirate of CPOTs leading that organization. And then they split up. So we got that done, and then a bunch of information and knowledge. And then, they do the arrests and as many as you can and all that kind of stuff. And it's spread out, and there's other offices that were involved, and some of those kept going. But once you start getting big time arrests, you start getting cooperation, and that cooperation leads to another arrest and then more cooperation, another. So it's still going on
because they see how much time they're facing, right? They start when you start adding up the charges, and you start going, son, it's life in prison at a place you're not going to like. So maybe we should make your cooperation known to the United States Attorney.
Yeah, and then some of them, it's like, and it's the one great thing about DEA is the way that we handle confidential sources, informants, and that it's bar none, we're hands down better than probably all the rest combined. And I'm including all monikers. And I've seen it in Warzone and everywhere else. But DEA does it better than anybody, and they have for a long time. And it's because we've learned from our mistakes and what works and what doesn't work. And but anyway,
your description of how other agencies were coming to you guys in Houston because of the technical means that you were using and the successes that you were enjoying is very similar to when we had Rob Zach on here. And you remember him from SOD, Keith. Nobody can pronounce his last name except him and his mom.
Zahara Sharovitz or something like that. Zahara Zahuski or something. Yeah.
But if you remember, the National Security Advisor challenged DEA, hey, you guys think you're such big shots, what about this merchant of death, Victor Boot? Can you get him? And DEA looked at him and said, yeah, we can. And they did.
And you know who got him? Do you know who got him?
Who?
Tony Hinton's group in Houston.
Oh, yeah?
They're the ones that were running and gunning everything. Now, you hear SOD. And I love SOD. I worked there 3 years, and I always worked with SOD. But Tony Hinton and his financial group, OCDF Financial Group in Houston, they're the basis for all that.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
And Tony Hinton. They're not a better guy. And it's just like I'm saying, DEA they've got some really good people.
They do. And and Keith is not giving himself credit. This is one of so we worked together. We were both in the Mexico Central American section of Special Operations. And you're not giving yourself credit because this is one of the hardest working individuals I've ever met in my life. there were times when we were on a hot case, if things were happening, Keith was in the office 48, 72 hours straight without going home. I would wake up and I'd have text messages from him at 3 a.m. in the morning, still in the freaking office. This is a dedication, and this is typical in DEA. This is not an isolated incident where one guy's outworking everybody else, but that's the dedication you see. And I got to brag on you, like I was going to at the beginning of this interview, Keith. But as serious as all this was, we also had a practical joker side. And Keith was one of the leaders in that. Shame on you if you left your computer on and walked away from your desk, or you left your BlackBerry uncoded and Keith got his hands on it. Because
Why,
really
would there be some
matter.
messages go to the administrator? Dear administrator.
No.
Oh, no. He went to the administrator.
We had the administrator transfer a couple of sacks.
He went in the office. He went in the office of the special agent in charge at SOD. Who?
That was Jimmy Craig.
No, it was
Joe Keefe. Joe Keefe. Yeah, I forgot Joe's. I forgot I got him too.
Joe Keefe is a legend. He is a legend in law enforcement.
He really is. He really is.
Utmost respect of everybody. And he walked away from his private office and left his computer up. And Keith is sending love messages from the SAC to other agents in the facility. And you got to understand, I mean, this is such a serious center with the biggest cases in the world going on. And you got Mr. Football in here that everybody's afraid of because he's physically intimidating.
And you know what? He's in there going, "You motherfuckers, we got them right where we fucking want them. I got them right. I got the sack right where I want him." Yeah.
But the great thing about it is you got, and I mean this, you got these guys that are so respected and done so much. Yeah. And they'll be the first ones laughing their tails off saying, "You got me, good job," you know, and
I mean, think about it. He went in the administrator. This is a presidentially appointed position. He went in her office.
No. She was in Afghanistan. I had her BlackBerry. Everybody knew she was in Afghanistan. I got her BlackBerry. Kelly Dillinger was helping me, and
I think dimed him right out.
Well, yeah, I got to, and because we had to reset it or something because she was traveling, whatever. And I go, "Give it to me, Kelly." He goes, "No." And I go, "Give me the BlackBerry." I go, "Who are we going to transfer?" And the thing about it, the guys that we transferred, they knew. They go, "We knew it was you. We knew." Yeah.
Because they got transferred to Ottumwa, Iowa. You're going to the resident agency in Ottumwa.
Well, I think I transferred all 3 super sacks back then, or 4. And they were going to like Dallas and Denver, and they were going from the biggest. Not anything wrong with Dallas or Denver, just they were smaller, much smaller. They were going from a super sack to the little places.
What rank were you at this time? You GS what? Were you a 13 or 14?
Oh no, I was either 14 or 15 because I finished up with 15. I think I might have been a 15 then.
You know, and a SAC, that's senior executive service within DEA.
That's a general. It's a brigadier general.
It has to be approved by the attorney general.
Yeah.
To get that position.
But as a GS-15, you're one step right below an SCS-1, right? So you're right. The next level would be to become an SCS. Well, and so you're on the administrator's BlackBerry transferring people. What else are you doing?
That's it. I mean, as far as the joke part of it.
I got to tell one more story. We're all on SOD, and somebody's getting transferred, and we always had our going away parties, and we had some really good parties.
We did.
And we're at some. Remember that bar we used to go to down in Chantilly? And I think they had a basement that we were allowed to use, and we could have a private area down there.
Yeah.
Can't remember the name of the bar, but we're down there one night, and so Keith and I'm the ASAC over this Mexico Central America section. Keith's a staff coordinator, and then there's another staff coordinator in there named Donnie Hansen. Now, you know, I'm a Tennessee, West Virginia boy, so I'm a redneck hillbilly, and you got a Texan here, a big Texan, and Donnie's from New York. And Keith's what? You're 6'4", I'm 6'2", and Donnie's probably 5'9", but he's a hell of an investigator. I'm not taking anything. This is just the funny part. And he comes by, and it was kind of a running joke that everybody in the group would give me shit because I have a country accent. You know, I'm from the South, and they're like, how'd you get up here, you freaking hillbilly? And so Donnie's just giving me down the road. It's all in good fun. We're having fun. And Keith comes walking by, and everybody's had several pops, maybe a couple too many, I'm not sure. But he comes by, and I said, Keith, he said, what's going on? And I said, Donnie's fucking with the boss. And Keith gets like right in Donnie's face, has to bend over, get in his face, and he said, you don't ever fuck with the boss. And he gives him a 4-inch chest shot with his big, beefy, bear-sized paw, sends Donnie flying across the room. He hits the crash bars on the exit door. Alarms go off. Donnie's over there going, he knocked the breath. I felt so sorry.
That wasn't intentional. Wasn't intentional, but
that's all done in love. But that was the tightness of the group. That's the camaraderie that you have to be a part of. You know what we're talking about, Morgan. You got to be part of it to understand
all I can
what
think
it's all about.
Keith was having a flashback. It's like, wait a minute, ball is hiked. They're trying to get Elway. I got to take this guy out. I'm taking out the guy who's going after Elwood. Whack!
Yeah. So many good stories. Yeah,
there are, and I mean the serious work that you're doing, but there's some good times as well.
So
we got to have some.
So I'm making a command decision here. We were going to talk about Afghanistan, but we're kind of running long. So you know what we're going to do, Keith? We're going to save that. We're going to bring you back. We're going to talk about that because we want to do some follow-up. We want to get John L. You are tasked now with getting John Elwood on this podcast with you so we can talk about the drive, the game.
Well, good luck on that because I'll ask him, but I doubt if he'll do it.
Just give us 10 minutes. Just share the seat with you. Give us 10 minutes, and he can say good things about cops and stuff like that, and we'll make it worth his while.
He can tell us Keith Bishop stories.
Yeah, that's the reason I don't think he'll do
it. You mean the cop stories or the Bishop stories?
The Bishop stories.
Okay, let's close out with. We want to talk about what you're doing now, but okay, you guys had to pull some practical jokes. Did you ever pull a good one on John Elway? Did you ever get him good?
No. I got some of the other guys pretty good. Like I was telling y'all about Gratishar and them doing all that smoke bombs and all that kind of stuff. And Randy was definitely, I mean, he's terrified of snakes. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
And so I got one of my hunting bunnies.
Yeah. You go out hunting with bunnies? You guys do some strange stuff in Texas, I'll tell you.
I don't. After Afghanistan, I don't hunt anymore. Anyway, I got one of my hunting buddies, and Gratishar was being ruthless to me. So we were still in Fort Collins. So this is my second year, and he got me a hognose, about a 3 foot. I don't know. 3 foot, 3.5 foot hognose, and hognoses are. I mean, they're mean. I mean,
what is a hognose?
It's pull it up on the computer. It's got its nose is up like it looked like a hognose, but they're non-poisonous, but they are aggressive, and so he caught me a hognose and brought it to me, or I met him and I got it, and I went up and I got into the locker room, and I wish I had shit. Normally I'd have something in here, but you've got these mesh nylon weave laundry bags that you put all your jock, your t-shirts, shorts.
I already see where this is going. Yeah,
and your socks in, and you turn it in, and so all your stuff is contained. It's got a little tab with your number on it, and the equipment guys wash it and they bring it back and they stick it in your locker, and so there's not all these millions of socks and everything. It's just boom, 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 boom. Mm-hmm. So I get there before the guys get there, and I get that hognose and I put it in Randy's laundry bag.
Oh, geez.
And hang it up in his locker. And so he had all the linebackers were in one little section, and then we were in the next section, but they had, the corrugated metal, whatever, the wire, like a barbecue grill, old style
kind of an open space
old
between
style,
sections.
The little diamonds, you cut out, and that'd be your grill for your barbecue. Well, that was the separation. So you could hear everything, what's going on. And so we're sitting over there, and Randy and them come in, Swinson and all the freaking linebackers, Tom Jackson, all them. And they're over on their side. And then you hear of it, and we're sitting over on this, our stuff. It's the last side. We're sitting there. We're just waiting. And we hear this blood-curdling scream, and what he'd done is you had a wood bench that went the length of where the lockers are on each side of the wall, and it was not a big open space. It was a long, like, hallway, double wide hallway, but then you had a wooden bench, posts into the ground, concrete floor, and then you had metal lockers on both sides. And you hear this because what he'd done is he had taken the bag out, undid the tie at the top, and then dumped it out on the wooden bench, that's sitting there, and then out comes freaking Hognose, and he just screaming, and so I take off running because I don't want him to hurt. I'm laughing, but I don't want him to hurt the snake, So I get around there.
It's a freaking snake.
Yeah, but I get around there. And I grab the snake, and he's just screaming, and I stick that thing right in his face. And I go, Randy, are the jokes done? And he goes, yeah. I go, are they done? And I'm holding that hog nose right in his face. And he goes, yes. I swear. And so I got him out of there and everything. So that was...
Were the jokes done?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my
God. It all ended from that. And then another one that was... a good one was me. We went on a cruise, and it was John Elway's sister, his twin sister that passed away. God bless her. But back then, she was doing stuff, and she got us on the Love Boat.
Oh, yeah.
I guess there was two of them. There was the Pacific Princess and the Island Princess. They were like twin boats, and they filmed on both, but we were on the Island Princess or whatever. It wasn't the Pacific Princess, but it was the twin that they also filmed. Anyway, we go on a cruise, and we go from it was a Mexican cruise around the Yucatan. No, not Yucatan. Yeah,
the Yucatan Peninsula.
Acapulco. We get to Acapulco. I think because we went to that restaurant where they do all the diving and all that stuff. The night diving at that whatever that famous restaurant in Acapulco. So we went to Acapulco, and then you did like Mazatlan, and you just tick, all the way around, and then we get off the boat in LA. And so I think we flew into Mexico City, then we had to take a bus to Acapulco, and then seemed like we got on another plane in Acapulco. No, maybe it's just picking up the bags. But anyway, the whole reason for the story is we're down there in Mexico, and I buy a whole bunch of big firecrackers and bottle rockets. And so I'm taking them back. And so we get to LA, and I've broken all this because big bottle rockets had big sticks on them, and I broke all those sticks off. So all I had was a whole bunch of bottle rockets without sticks and a whole bunch of big, they weren't M80, but they were very loud firecrackers. And they're all in my luggage. And then we get there, and then they got all the dogs out, looking for the dope coming in from, and I was like, oh shit, they're going to get me for firecrackers. Yeah. And they passed right through. So for the next 2 years in training camp, people were terrified to go to the restroom because they knew they were going to get a bottle rocket or a firecracker thrown on them. But anyway, you'd have to do urine tests. And so they'd have these guys in lab coats, and they'd come. And this is one of our trainers, Steve Ananopoulos, who just retired last year, 42 years with the Broncos, whatever. But they had a bunch of and they'd get all these urine sample cups, and they'd be on a Furs cafeteria, your plate platter thing. And then they'd take all those into the restroom, and then they'd do all the tests and stuff. Well, one of those lab guys was walking with that tray of piss, and I threw one of them firecrackers over the retaining wall in camp, and that thing went off, and he was covered in piss. I mean, his whole white jacket was all yellow.
That's nasty.
And Ananopo just loves that. I mean, he goes, that was funny, you know. And the guy was so pissed.
Literally, yeah.
And then the last one I'll say was another one of the big practical jokers was on the team was defensive back Steve Foley, who's still a good friend. I see him and his wife Cindy. But anyway, he was buddies with, and he's a Kunas. I mean, he was a New Orleans kid, and so he's snake. None of that shit bugged him, and he was a big hunter and stuff. And so anyway, Bob Swinson, and Gratishar, they were the three amigo tricksters, and I hadn't got Foley yet. So we were having our picture day at the stadium at the old Mile High, and I was, I got black powder guns and all that kind of stuff. So I have a 50 caliber and I got a 54 caliber black powder, and I had to have 54 because of my number. So anyway, I go and I do a double charge on my 54 caliber, and just with wadding in there. Dang. And so we're doing our picture day and everything, and then one of the you can't do this shit anymore, but the
there's a reason.
Yeah, I know. But there was a Denver cop that was underneath the stadium, and in the walkout where we were, and I said, "Hey, here's what I'm going to do. I just want to let you know so you don't have to worry about it and everything." I go, "I got black powder." I go, "There's nothing loaded in it, but Foley's going to come through there, and I'm going to play like I'm pissed at him, and then, I'm going to shoot him." And he goes, "Oh God, this is going to be good," And so Foley comes by, and he's good 20 yards from me. 25 yards from me, and I've got this big old black powder musket, and I go, "Foley," and you might have better do this, and he looks at me and everything, and I go, and I aimed right at him, but then before I pulled the trigger, I lifted it up, I was up over his right shoulder.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it would have been his right shoulder, and I hit that thing, and he disappeared. I mean, that black smoke from a double charge, and his knees gave out. He was down, and I was crying. So he never screwed with me anymore, either. So that took care of Gratishar and Swinson and Foley with the snake and then the black powder.
Okay, how many people are left on your list? I'm just a little curious here, Keith.
I'm glad I never pissed you off.
But that was, having fun, And then I set up one of my buddies down in Midland, took Steve and a bunch of his family. They went on a big old pheasant hunt down in North Panhandle of Texas, and my buddies took him around doing that stuff. So I made up for it. Steve and I are still good friends.
Maybe we ought to get him on the show.
He's probably still traumatized. We'll have to get Dr. Phil to talk. Let's get real, people. Let's talk about the trauma you endured at the hands of Keith Bishop.
But you can't do that anymore,
Right.
And even the police officer, it was all fun and good. Obviously if something would have hurt, then that's a whole nother thing. But
it's fun and game until somebody loses an eye. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're going to ask. Go ahead, Morgan. I think you're going to ask the same question.
What's that? You mean what's he doing now?
Yeah.
Or either that. I just really wanted to find out. Okay, either one of us on your list, because I got to know this shit, pal. I got to start preparing.
No.
Okay, that was my first question. But then, what we want to wrap up with is tell us what you're doing now. So how long were you at DEA, and you're back at the Broncos now?
Yes, I spent 20 years with DEA. I was blessed. Did 8.5 years in Dallas, 3 full years in DC at SOD, 5 years in Houston, supervisor, and then Afghanistan for 38 months. And I was in a couple of ambushes in Afghanistan, and in one of them, it was a pretty good one. I mean, both times I was with the Norwegians, and it was funny because I was with 2 different squadrons of the Norwegian FSK, and they're great, highly respected special forces guys. But both were two separate squadrons, and they were okay. Which tick was worse? Was ours worse or their worse? So it's that same old, same old. It's just, but what's the reason for this? So it was the first. I got to remember which troops in contact it was. I think it was the first one. Yeah, it was the first one because it was bad. Anyway, they're shooting and stuff, and so we're grabbing these. You got all this kit on, which
there go the headphones again.
That thing, it weighs a ton. And then you got ammo, and you got your radio, and you got your helmet.
Hey, okay, Keith, you got. Yeah, we can't. Don't understand. I don't read lips. So you had the plate carrier there. So that thing's pretty heavy. You got your guns. You got your ammo.
Yeah, and you got your radio. And shit, I could do a Taliban thing here for you in a second. And hang on.
Ow.
We got our headphones off again, everybody. I'm not sure what he's going to come up with.
I don't think he understands the concept of a podcast.
He's getting his beanie out. He's got his Taliban beanie.
Got my Masood hat. Or my Russian soldier.
That's your Russian. Yeah, I was going to say that's Russian, man.
And that thing doesn't fit you.
So
that thing sat right on top of your head. It didn't go over the.
Well, that's off the field. I mean, and all this stuff's going on. And Kelly Dillinger was with me on this first one. And I remember one of the guys, we had driven through this village the night before, and Kelly was driving one of our vehicles. I was driving the other. And we had borrowed night vision from the Norwegians because we had the old stuff and they had the good stuff. So anyway, we drive all through this village and we're looking for this bad guy, a really bad guy. And we're using the geolocation equipment, and which triggerfish we use in the U.S. And we drive all through it. We get a couple hits, but we don't get any success. So we all go back to camp because it's becoming daylight because you have to do everything at night. And so we're back, and then they're like, to me and Kelly, you guys did great. How long y'all been driving in Nods? And we go, last night was our first time, doing it the whole night. And they're like, what? So they're like, okay, we're driving tonight. And so they're driving us this next night, and one of them drives off into a creek, and the big, Norwegians, and I love them to death. I'm still in contact with them, but they drive out in the creek. But then that's when the ambush starts, is when they drive. So they're shooting and stuff. Kelly is down, and we're having to grab big rocks to try to bolster the Land Cruiser, the armored Land Cruiser around, to try to keep it from rolling over. And all this shooting's going on, and Kelly, like, he's looking at me and going, Keith, quit fucking around with the firecrackers. And I go, Kelly, that's not firecracker, they're shooting. And he's going, oh shit. He comes flying up out of there. And but anyway, so we're moving all these big rocks and everything, and you got all this kit on. Well, I get a really bad abdominal hernia. And and Steve will tell you, when you go overseas, and especially to a war zone, the physicals you have to go through before they do all the approvals, I mean, they check you for everything. And so it was like, I'm hitting up my insurance, and they're, are you sure you had a hernia? It's like, yes. So anyway, I'm coming back over for that thing, and well, maybe it wasn't, but I'm coming back for leave for some reason. I'm thinking it might have been the award thing, but anyway, I'm coming back over. I call the Broncos and said, hey, does your doctor, because I wanted to Bronco doctor, because they've got very good doctors, to do my hernia repair. And we looked it up, and yeah, they accepted GEHA, which was my insurance back then. And so, boom, I make arrangements, and I'm coming. Then Elway gets wind that I'm coming back in, and he goes, Keith, he goes, while you're here, he goes, there's something I want to talk to you about. You know, you got to come over for dinner. And I go, okay, if I have time, I swear I will. And so I get there, and then the doctor does, and it wasn't a what do you call it, a scope repair. They had to cut me, put mesh in, all that kind of stuff. And so it was a good hernia. And so I go over and then the doctor says, you're not going back to Afghanistan for a week. He goes, you're staying in the U.S. for 7 days minimum. I go, gotcha. So then I go over to John's, and that's when John hit me. He goes, here's what I'm thinking. And we had just, because we usually have a glass of scotch together. And so we just got 2 glasses, and I'd just taken like 2 sips, and he goes, okay, here's what I'm thinking. And he goes, I want you to come back and be the head of security for the Broncos with me. And then his wife, Paige, and they're all saying, you know, you got to come. And so I go, well, you know, what's it involved? And he goes, da. So I go, okay. I go, because I just told my Thai wife's family that once I retired from DEA, I was going to relocate to Thailand. And then one of the contracting companies that I was working with over there, the owner of it had said, Keith, you got a job for life as long as I'm. So I was going to go from DEA to doing the contracting work all over the world and live in Thailand. And I mean, I just made those promises to my wife's family. And
as we do this podcast right now, where are you located at here, Keith? You in Denver?
Right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in Denver.
Okay.
Yeah.
We saw how well that worked out. Yeah.
And so I go, well, and I say all this to John, and he knew. I mean, we've stayed in contact, so he knew I had my 20 years in. I was going to put 20 years in. In fact, I was going to put a couple more in until I was mandatory. And so that's all this stuff. And so I go, John, you know, I've just told, I go, it's really, and Paige is like, Keith, you got to, and stuff. And I go, well, I go, John, can I think about it? And he goes, absolutely. So we sit there and we turn back to the TV, and I have 2 more sips. And he goes, Bish. I go, what? And he goes, what'd you decide? And that's, swear to God, true story. And I
believe it.
All right. I go, I'm doing it. And he goes, okay. So that's how I became head of security for the Broncos. And that was right before Thanksgiving of 2011. Then I flew from here after that to Thailand, and then Dee met me in Bangkok, and then we went up to Khon Kaen, where she's from, and neither of her parents speak any English. So we go into the house, and I'm sitting there, and I go, Dee, tell your father, you know, what I'm planning, and if he approves. And so she's kneeling in front of her father, and you know, the Thai respect and Asian respect. I mean, it's neat. But anyway, she's sitting there, and she's, you know, she tells her father, and he, you know, he looks at her.
Well, there went the respect.
Hey, I'm married 12. I'm coming up 12 years in reality, 11 years legally. Because Buddhist ceremonies don't count anywhere in the world, including Thailand, which I didn't know. But that's a whole nother good story. But anyway, so she says that to her father, and the father goes, da 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 da. And I'm looking, and she's like, she bows and everything. He looks at me, and he kind of, and then she turns, and I go, what'd he say? She goes, wife goes with the husband.
thought he was going to say something like, "You got 3 minutes to get the hell out of my house."
No, I know. I mean, it's just wife goes with the husband.
Wow.
And then he goes, and then you got to pay for a bus to come over and visit. And it's like, it's just, I love them to death. But anyway, that was that. And then I got back into Afghanistan. That would have been, because we had done the Buddhist ceremony the year before. And so then I put in for my, SMA, separation maintenance allowance, because I was married to a Thai girl. We had the big Buddha ceremony it went for hours, like all day, after a big party the night before with guys from Afghanistan that came in. And, but anyway, that was in March the year before, and applied for SMA, and they headquarters just laughing on the phone saying, dude, that don't count. That don't even count in Thailand. And it doesn't. Basically, my wife and I were boyfriend and girlfriend. So we went to Umpar, which is a justice of peace. We got married officially, got it registered. I went back into Afghanistan, had a meeting with the guys at Afghanistan, told them that what was happening, that I was been made the offer, had to retire. And then I left Afghanistan February, I think 10th. Flew through Houston, saw my kids, and then came up here and started work. I think it was the 12th or 14th of February. I started working here.
Did you drive by your kids' house and wave?
No, we all went out and got barbecue. They were all in school and all that kind of stuff. So
yeah. They got their own lives, I know.
Yeah. Right.
All right. So how big is John Elway's house? Is it like 2 football fields big?
He's lived in that home. I think now it's like close to 30 years.
In addition to you being in charge of security for the Broncos, which I know is very time consuming, anything else going on? Supporting charities, doing the Lord's work? What else are you doing?
No, anything with survivor benefit, anything along those lines, local law enforcement, state, federal, DEA, obviously, anything along those lines. Always, you've got down in Pueblo, you've got the Center for American Values, which is Drew Dick's Medal of Honor group down there that they've, I think I'm on their advisory board, but because of COVID, my 2 years of being on, I've never been on the advisory board I've made some donations, small donations to it, and I've gone down for various functions and dinners and stuff. It's an hour and 20 minutes, whatever. It's Pueblo from here. It's any of your listeners that are driving through southern Pueblo, Colorado, look it up. The Center for American Values, and they've got all the photos, all the Medal of Honor recipients, and they all come there. And yeah, it's such a. And Drew Dix, who is a recipient in Vietnam, and you look his story up, and it's like, and but anyway, I was supposed to be more involved a little bit, but it hadn't happened because of COVID since they invited me, which is now it's coming up on 2 years. But I was talking with one of the guys that's on their actual board of directors who told me that they're going to fire stuff up. And so I'll find out a little bit more on that. But just taking care of my wife and my kids and not interfering with them. And then, the family in Thailand, we're always a little support there every month too, because a little bit from here goes a long ways there. So
before I retired from DEA, we'd come out to Denver for whatever it was we were out there for, and we connected with you for dinner. And you took us in to see the Broncos training facility. We got to see the 2 Super Bowl trophies in there. Got to go through the locker room. 3. I only remember seeing 2 out there in the lobby. But got to go back in the locker room, and I remember walking down the hallway there just before you got to the locker room, and there was I took a picture of it, a huge sign on the wall that said, "Failure to prepare is preparing to fail." And I can't tell you how many times I used that later in my career after seeing that sign, because it says so much. But I also remember when we went to dinner it might have been that place you were talking about with wings and beer. We had to drop you at the front door because your hips were just about non-functional.
Gosh,
so since that time, all these years later, did you get the hip surgery?
I had both hips done in 2012, which is like I got here, and I swear to goodness I hadn't been here a month, and I mean I was dying, but I started dying from my hips, which I thought was my back. I thought it was, my sciatic and back and all that stuff. But in Afghanistan, I mean, it was my whole, like the last year I was there, I was like, it was painful. But anyway, I came here, been here maybe a month and a half, and I went down to Steve Antonopoulos, who was the trainer. And I said, "Steve, check my back." I go, "I'm dying." I go, I got to get something done. So he looks at me, and this guy he's a trainer for 40. He was a trainer when I was a rookie. He was the trainer. He'd take my ankles for 10 years. And I mean, he's a dear friend, and from Hugo, Colorado, and just a great guy, Greek. And he looks at me and he goes, "Bish," he goes, "It ain't your back." He goes, "I think it's your hips." And I go, "It ain't my fucking hips." I go, "It's my back." And he goes, "Well," yeah, he goes, "Do you want to bet?" And I go, "No." I go, "Greek, I'm not stupid." And he goes, "Well, I'm going to send you over to the or Stedman Hopkins guys. They're our orthopedic surgeons, and have them check you." And so, boom, he calls over. I go over, and I'm telling Dr. Bublik, "Hey, Martin, it's my back." I go, "But Greek wants me," and he goes, "Okay." And he goes, "What did Greek say?" And I go, "He says it's my hips." And he goes, he asked me if I wanted to bet, and he goes, "Sheesh." He goes, "Okay." He goes, "We'll get the X-rays, and I'll come back." And so they do X-rays, and I'm sitting in there, and he comes back in. First thing he says, he goes, "Bish, did you bet Greek?" And I go, "No." I go, "I'm not stupid." And Morgan, you got to understand, I've got a K in front of my N now. And so he goes, "Keith," and he pulls the thing. He goes, "There's nothing wrong with your back." He goes, "But your hips are gone." And basically bone on bone. And the long story of that is the cipromycin that you took when you got the parasites in Afghanistan, because you got the parasites. And once you got them, it's like you do whatever you can to get rid of them, because
Absolutely.
it's going through you, and it's living organisms and all. So anyway, one of the side effects of Cipro is if you got damaged cartilage or ligament, all that kind of stuff, it eats it. And so it's there you go. And there's a clue. But anyway, so they got me lined up, and Doug Dennis, give him, anybody needs hip replacements. There's a lot of great ones. Doug Dennis here in Denver, he did it anyway. And Elway's walking by my office, and after I've gone to the doctor and got everything set up for my surgeries, and I go, "Hey, Wood, come here." And he comes in my office, and I go, "Man, I sold you a bill of goods." And he goes, "What are you talking about?" And I go, "I got to get both my hips replaced." And he had already had a knee replacement. And he goes, "Get it replaced. Quit worrying about it." And he turned around and walked out, And so I was feeling bad, because I really thought, sheesh.
Well,
But
dude, you're
once
not
I got
suiting up and going out on the field. I mean, you're going to occupy a chair. I mean, come on.
And I tell you, you talk about anybody that has serious like hip, joint, knee, and it's being recommended to you to get the replacement. It's do it. Please do it, because the quality of life is, you don't know how much pain you're in until you get it repaired. So then I got both hips replaced, and then next my knees went, and it's been a little over, I think I may be coming up on 2 years since I had my knees done. So I've had both hips, both knees, and it's a godsend.
Best thing you did.
Yeah.
Finally,
football,
after all
that's a
those years
tough
at the
life, man.
Broncos, you finally got some hardware.
Yeah. Oh, well, I had 10. Yeah. I got 3 second place rings. And then when we got beat by the Giants, when we got beat by the Seahawks by Russell Wilson in 12, I got a second place ring. And then it's you get the division championship ring. And then when we won in 15, I got a
honker?
Big Super Bowl ring, yeah.
Sweet.
So,
Sweet.
yeah.
Which he has slid around his wrist and he's wearing right now. Well, hey, look, the preceding message was brought to you by AARP and the Academy for Orthopedic Surgeons. So,
yeah, I can't tell you. Get it done.
Get it done. Well, besides, it's a small price to pay to set off a metal detector going through the airport to get those things replaced because it's truly quality of life. Well, hey, look, I saw you. I mean, you're running operations. We got to be respectful of your time here, but I got to tell you, I mean, this is, in terms of where we went with this and where we thought we were going to go and what we ended up with, there is one thing I learned out of this. Number one, the N on Nebraska's helmet doesn't stand for knowledge anymore, thanks to you. Number two, if there's somebody I don't want to piss off and have them play a practical joke on me, dude, it's you. I mean, I thought I was the master of it, but putting the snake in there, the firecracker. Oh, okay, that's next level shit. I got to give you props for that, man.
Yeah, and we also learned that John Elway's name is really John Elwood. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here's the deal. You get John Elway on this, and I promise I'm the king of practical jokes. I can get you even from here. But you put Elway on, I'll give you a reprieve. There will be no retribution. Deal?
Retribution for what?
I'm not making any promises. I'll ask you, but
just be careful opening up your laundry bag. Okay, that's all I can say, pal.
Yeah, I'm going on hopefully a long motorcycle ride in the first part of July, and I'm going to try to go from the whole Idaho on the BDR. And John has a place, he lives up in that part of Idaho, and he goes, because everybody asks, because every year I go on a long motorcycle ride. Last year I did 6,000, 7,000 miles.
Dang.
7,000 miles in just over 2 weeks. But this one is 1,400 miles, but it's all dirt and you camp. And, so anyway, that's where you get away, and everything from Afghanistan and all that, you get all that kind of.
Get that clarity.
Helps. Yeah.
Get your mind back right. Oh, I tell you what, Keith, our listeners don't know, but Keith doesn't do interviews, and you can research him. I think we might have found one article out of a Dallas newspaper, but it was mostly the Dallas cops talking about you. So the fact that you agreed to come on here, it's a true honor for us. You are
friends are friends. So
that's right. Yeah. And that's the camaraderie and the brotherhood of law enforcement. When I asked Keith, he said, I don't do interviews, but for you, I will. So it's been a true honor on here to have you here, brother, and tell us everything that you've been through.
People can't see this. This is me saluting you, sir. Thank you for service. Thank you.
Absolutely.
For doing what you do.
One thing I want to mention that we didn't talk about, but one of the things that DEA did in Afghanistan the whole time I was there, not because of me, but because when we were there, is with our military, we did what we called was force protection. And we provided information to our military and to the MOI guys and to some of the other militaries as well that were ISAF, but predominantly our guys, where our guys ambushed the ambushers. And then we got to listen to it. And it was, I'm wanting to give kudos to DEA for their contribution in Afghanistan, because we saved
lives.
DEA saved a lot of good guys' lives.
Outstanding.
And sent a lot of bad guys. We had, and I'll shut up and then we'll hang up. But we had guys calling in sick to jihad.
Really?
And they said it like that. And I'm calling in sick for jihad. And we sent those recordings to the 10th group and it was, and they loved it. I mean, that's how effective the program was that was ongoing over there. So it's
your boss over there was Mike Marsack, right?
Yeah.
Who's another legend in DEA. Good friend.
He's such a good dude. And he lives 20 miles from here.
So
my regards to Mike when you see him.
I will.
We're getting Elwood on. You're coming back. We're going to have to do another story, and we're going to have to figure out a great practical joke to play on Murph. So you and I will talk.
Let me tell you what,
Okay.
now, somebody brings a snake in here, somebody's getting shot. There's no two ways about it. And it ain't going to be wadding.
Okay. We bring this to a close. Everybody hang on and stay tuned for the debrief. Man, first of all, he's funny as hell. And second of all, he did not have a concept of, hey, Steve, Keith, you put a headset on to keep it on during the podcast. Here he is taking it off, going to get all his Taliban and Afghan related stuff and, everything else. And he gave up a lot of money and a big career to go into law enforcement.
Oh, you're not kidding. If you didn't know this already, you don't go in law enforcement to get rich if you're going to be an honest cop. Now, there's some douchebags out there that do, but what it was, so when we interview somebody for our listeners, we actually see them on video as we're speaking, but we only record the audio portion. And the background of his office at the Denver Broncos training camp looks like a museum in there. Holy cow, he's got more crap on his walls and on his shelves on the desktop. I'm not sure how he finds any workspace to work. And that's what it was. He was so excited about showing us the things that he had available. And you could just tell the guy was pouring his heart out to us. But you're right, man. Next time we send him a headset, we're going to get a chin strap or something on it so he can't take it off.
Yeah, well, apparently he took his helmet off in a few games too. I had to edit out a lot of the.
He meant well, but I can't tell you what an honor it was, Keith, to have you on the show. Thank you, brother. I'm sure we'll be in touch in the future.
He owes us an interview with John Elwood. He said he was going to do it.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if he brings him on or Elwood from the Blues Brothers.
Well, either way, Elwood, if you're listening, we got a headset for you. Just remember, leave it on your fucking head.
There you go. Great interview, though. Honored.
Great interview. Hey, and guys, as you're hearing this, as this episode drops, it's going to be Memorial Day of 2022. So first of all, we want to remember the reason for Memorial Day. And the reason for Memorial Day is for all of those who have died in the service of our country in the armed forces. And so this is us saluting you, say, we remember, never forget. A lot of people who have given everything to defend and protect freedom in the United States. So this is me and Murph saluting you.
As we all know, freedom is not free. So God bless those that dedicated their lives and their families.
Yeah, and it's not Happy Memorial Day, folks. It's not a reason, to have a sale and everything else. It's time to reflect back and remember who the true heroes are. But anyway, that being said, hey guys, as you're also hearing this too, when this drops on Monday, May 31st, 2022, Murph and I will be the next day in San Diego at the Southern California Gang Conference. So we are going to be bringing you some interesting tales. Not sure yet what it's going to be, but this is going to be our first remote podcast recordings. So that's why it's a conference with close to 1,000 gang and narcotics investigators around Southern California. I've heard a lot of stories just talking to these guys in the restaurants and the bars and out in the hallways at the conference site. It's unbelievable what goes on out there. I mean, what a violent place that is out there. And you got all these dedicated heroes. And I'll tell you, in keeping with our collection of practical jokes, because you heard Keith Bishop played some awesome, this guy has got A-level practical jokes. I am going to get somebody down there to wear a balaclava to record a podcast episode so we can protect their identity. You're going to get our asses kicked out there. That's what you're going to do. I'm going to get yours kicked. I can run faster than you, man. You're still hurting. So it's like the shark catches the slowest fish, dude. Just remember. It's amazing how fast I can run when I'm scared. All right, guys. Well, hey, let's bring this to a close. Again, thank you guys. Once again, we appreciate every one of you out there, all of our players out there, and thank you for supporting the show. And once again, we want to thank you guys for playing the biggest, baddest, most dangerous game of all, the Game of Crimes.